The wedding chapel erupted in flames just as Emily Carrington whispered, "I do," through shattering stained glass and suffocating smoke. Her desperate scream pierced the mountain air until strong arms pulled her from beneath burning pews. Daniel Hayes, a widowed flower delivery man who'd lost everything to fire once before, didn't know the trembling bride in his arms would become his second chance at love. Welcome to a story where salvation comes wrapped in soot and ash. Stay with me until the end, and don't forget to comment your city below. I'd love to know how far this story has traveled. The morning had started like any other delivery day for Daniel Hayes. His weathered hands gripped the steering wheel of his flower van as it wound up the mountain road toward the Whitmore Chapel, the most exclusive wedding venue in Colorado's high country. The back of his van bloomed with arrangements, white roses, baby's breath, and lilies that filled the air with a sweetness that always made him think of Sarah. 3 years since the warehouse fire took her, and flowers still carried her ghost. "Daddy, can we get ice cream after your deliveries?" Lily's voice crackled through the phone speaker mounted on his dashboard. "We'll see, sweetheart. Be good for Mrs. Patterson, okay?" "I'm always good," his 7-year-old protested with mock indignation. "She's teaching me to knit. I'm making you a scarf. In July!" Daniel chuckled, the sound rusty but genuine. These small moments with Lily were the only times he truly smiled anymore. "For winter, silly. It's going to be blue like your eyes." "My eyes are brown, baby girl." "Oh, then brown like your eyes." He ended the call as the chapel came into view, its white spire piercing the clear mountain sky like a promise of heaven. The Carrington-Preston wedding. He'd seen the announcement in the society pages, old money, marrying new money, the kind of union that made headlines in the financial district. The bride's family owned half the ski resorts in Aspen. The groom's tech fortune could probably buy the other half. Daniel parked behind the catering trucks and began unloading arrangements. The summer heat was already building despite the altitude, and he wiped sweat from his forehead with the sleeve of his faded uniform shirt, the one with Hayes Flowers embroidered on the pocket, though the business was really just him and his van now. He'd downsized everything after Sarah died, couldn't bear to walk into their shop, knowing she'd never be there arranging sunflowers by the window again. Inside the chapel, controlled chaos reigned. Wedding planners barked orders into headsets while photographers adjusted lighting equipment. The altar, drowning in white silk and gold ribbon, looked like something from a fairy tale or a corporate merger dressed up as romance. Daniel had delivered to enough weddings to recognize the difference between decorations chosen with love and those selected from a portfolio to impress the society photographers. "Careful with those," a sharp voice cut through his thoughts. Preston Blackwood, the groom himself, stood near the altar in a tuxedo that probably cost more than Daniel made in 6 months. "Do you have any idea what those arrangements cost?" "Just doing my job, sir," Daniel replied evenly, setting the flowers in their designated spots. He'd learned long ago that invisible was the best way to be at these events. Invisible meant getting paid without drama. Preston's phone buzzed and his expression shifted from irritated to something darker as he read the screen. "Make sure everything's perfect," he snapped at no one in particular before striding out through a side door. Daniel continued his work methodically, but something nagged at him, a smell beneath the flowers and furniture polish. Faint, but familiar. His years as a fire captain had trained his senses to detect danger, and though he'd walked away from that life, the instincts remained. He paused, inhaling deeply. There, a chemical tang that didn't belong. "Excuse me, you're in the shot." A photographer waved him aside impatiently. Daniel moved but kept his senses alert. The smell grew stronger near the back of the chapel where antique tapestries hung between tall windows. His pulse quickened. He knew that smell accelerant. His mind immediately cataloged exits, counted people, calculated response times, old habits rushing back like muscle memory. The vestibule door opened and Emily Carrington entered for her final preparations. Even from across the chapel, Daniel could see she was stunning in the way that money and breeding cultivated porcelain skin, honey blonde hair twisted into an elaborate style that must have taken hours, a dress that seemed to be made of captured starlight. But it was her eyes that caught him. They looked trapped, like a bird that had just realized the golden cage door had locked. Emily's shoulders back, An older woman, her mother by the resemblance, adjusted the bride's veil with sharp, efficient movements. "Remember, you're a Carrington. Act like it." "Yes, mother." The words were dutiful, but Daniel heard something else underneath. Resignation, fear. He'd heard that tone before in victims' voices at accident scenes, people in shock who answered questions automatically while their minds were elsewhere. 20 minutes until ceremony, someone announced. Daniel finished placing the last arrangement and headed for his van. Whatever was happening here wasn't his business. He'd learned the hard way that playing hero came with a price. Sarah had begged him to leave the fire department, to choose safety, to choose their family. He'd promised her after just one more shift, one more save. But that one more shift had been the warehouse fire, and by the time he'd made it home, she was gone trying to save their neighbor's cat from a kitchen fire in their apartment building. The smoke had been too much for her asthma. He'd saved 13 people that night while his wife died alone. He was loading his empty flour containers when he heard it, a sound like breaking kindling followed by a whoosh that sent ice through his veins. Through the chapel's tall windows, orange light bloomed where there should have been only afternoon sun. Fire! Someone's scream shattered the mountain quiet. Daniel's body moved before his mind could stop it. 3 years of deliveries vanished. He was Captain Hayes again, muscles remembering protocols, brain calculating scenarios. The main entrance was already blocked, smoke billowing out in black clouds. The side door, he'd seen Preston use it earlier. He sprinted around the building, his flower delivery uniform no protection against what he was about to do. The side door was open, smoke pouring out, but not yet thick at ground level. Inside, screams mixed with the roar of flames that were spreading faster than they should, confirming his suspicion about accelerant. "Everyone down, crawl to the exits." His captain's voice cut through panic, commanding and clear. "Stay below the smoke, move." Bodies scrambled past him. Caterers, photographers, guests who'd arrived early. He counted them automatically while scanning for anyone trapped. The fire was moving with unnatural hunger, devouring silk decorations and antique wood with equal appetite. The old chapel's ventilation was feeding it like a chimney. Then he heard a single desperate scream from near the altar. Through the smoke, he saw white silk pooling on the floor. Emily. Her elaborate dress had caught on something, and she was pulling frantically at the fabric while flames advanced from both sides. Daniel didn't think. He charged through the heat, feeling it sear his exposed skin. The decorated altar was fully ablaze now, pieces of burning fabric floating down like hellish snow. Emily's eyes met his terror, mixed with something else. Recognition. Hope. Hold still. He dropped to his knees beside her, pulling out the pocket knife he always carried, another holdover from his captain days. The dress fabric was caught on a nail, and the old floorboards layers of expensive silk and tulle wrapped around it like a trap. The heat was unbearable, smoke thick enough to chew. I can't breathe." Emily gasped, her perfectly styled hair now, wild makeup streaming down her face in sooty tears. "Yes, you can. Look at me. Breathe with me." He kept his voice steady while sawing through the fabric, remembering how he used to calm victims. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. The knife finally cut through the last layer. Without ceremony, he hauled Emily to her feet and half-carried, half-dragged her toward the side exit. A beam crashed down behind them, sending up a shower of sparks. The windows began exploding from the heat, each one sounding like a gunshot. They burst out into daylight, Daniel's lungs screaming for clean air. He pulled Emily further from the building onto the grass where other survivors had gathered. She collapsed, the ruined dress spreading around her like spilled cream, coughing and gasping. "Is everyone out?" Daniel demanded, already counting faces, comparing to his mental tally. "The wedding party was all in the back rooms," someone said. "They got out through the rear exit." But Preston wasn't among them. Daniel spotted him standing apart from the crowd, his expression strange, not shocked or relieved, but calculating. Watching Emily with an intensity that raised every protective instinct Daniel had thought died with his captain's badge. "Thank you," Emily whispered, her voice raw from smoke. She was looking up at him with those trapped bird eyes, but something in them had changed. The cage door wasn't just locked anymore. It had been blown open. "You saved my life." "Just did what anyone would do," Daniel replied, but they both knew that wasn't true. The other guests had run. The wedding party had saved themselves. Even her groom stood at a safe distance, making no move to comfort his bride. Sirens wailed up the mountain road, his former brothers coming to fight what he'd run from. Daniel stood to give them space, but Emily's hand caught his wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong for someone who'd just survived a fire. "What's your name?" she asked. "Daniel. Daniel Hayes." "I'm Emily." She laughed a broken sound, though I guess the wedding dress gave that away. "Emily." Her mother descended like a designer-clad vulture. "Oh my God, your dress, the family heirloom, 4 generations of Carrington women." "Mother, I nearly died." "Don't be dramatic, you're fine." Mrs. Carrington's eyes swept over Daniel dismissively. "Thank you for your assistance. I'm sure Preston will compensate you appropriately." The casual assumption that money could pay for everything, even a life saved, ignited something in Daniel he'd thought was ash. But before he could respond, Emily stood swaying slightly. The ruins of her dress shed pearls and burnt lace with every movement. "I need to go to the hospital," she said quietly. "Nonsense, the wedding can be rescheduled. The Pemberton Chapel has an opening next month." "Mother, stop." Emily's voice carried a strength that made everyone turn. "Just stop." Preston finally approached his phone, still in his hand. "Emily, darling, are you hurt?" The endearment sounded rehearsed. Daniel watched Emily's face, saw her notice the same thing. "I'm alive," she said carefully. "No thanks to you. I was making sure the insurance paperwork was started. The chapel was fully covered, and your father will want to know about liability." "Liability?" Emily's laugh had an edge now. "I nearly burned to death in my wedding dress, and you're worried about liability. Someone has to think practically." Daniel knew he should leave. This wasn't his business, wasn't his problem. But something about the way Preston looked at Emily, possessive but not protective, made him stay. He'd seen that look before in the eyes of arsonists watching their fires burn. The fire chief approached Jim Rodriguez, who'd been Daniel's lieutenant once upon a time. His eyes widened in recognition. "Danny? Jesus, what are you doing here?" "Flower delivery?" Daniel said simply. "Wrong place, right time." "From what witnesses are saying, more like right place, right time. You got the bride out." Daniel nodded, watching Jim's expression shift to something professional and concerned. "This fire's all wrong," Jim said quietly for Daniel's ears only. "Spread pattern doesn't make sense for an accident. Accelerant traces everywhere. We're treating it as suspicious." Daniel's eyes found Preston again, who was now arguing with someone on his phone, gesticulating angrily. Emily sat on the grass, her mother fussing over her while she stared at nothing, or maybe everything. The mountain view, the clear sky, the world beyond burnt silk, and family expectations. "You might want to keep an eye on her," Daniel told Jim. Whoever set this knew exactly when the chapel would be fullest. "Gee, you think someone targeted the wedding?" "I think someone knew exactly when and where to cause maximum damage." Daniel kept his voice low. "The accelerant was placed specifically to block exits. If I hadn't noticed the smell earlier..." "Still got those instincts, huh?" Jim clapped him on the shoulder. "You ever think about coming back? Department could use someone with your experience." "No." The word came out harsher than intended. "Those days are over." Jim didn't push. He'd been at Sarah's funeral, knew why Daniel had walked away. The EMTs arrived loading Emily onto a gurney despite her protests that she was fine. Her mother climbed into the ambulance with her still complaining about the dress. Preston didn't even look up from his phone. Daniel returned to his van, hands shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. His shirt was singed, his throat raw from smoke, but he was alive. Emily was alive. That had to be enough. He drove down the mountain on autopilot muscle memory, navigating the curves while his mind replayed every second of the fire. The smell of accelerant, the too-fast spread pattern, Preston's strange calm, Emily's trapped eyes. None of it was his problem. He'd done his part, saved a life, could go home to Lily with a clear conscience. But those eyes, that look of recognition when she'd seen him through the smoke, not just as a rescuer, but as someone who understood what it meant to be trapped by circumstances beyond your control. His phone rang through the van's speaker, Mrs. Patterson, Lily's babysitter. "Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry to bother you, but Lily saw something on the news about a fire at a wedding chapel. She's very upset, keeps asking if you're okay. I'm fine. Tell her I'm coming home now. Oh, good. She'll be relieved. She's such a sensitive soul, that one. Gets it from her mother, I imagine. The casual mention of Sarah hit harder than the smoke had. 3 years and people still spoke of her in present tense sometimes, as if she'd just stepped out for groceries instead of being buried in Mountain View Cemetery. When he pulled into his driveway, a modest cabin on the outskirts of town, all he could afford after the medical bills and funeral expenses, Lily burst out the front door. She threw herself into his arms before he'd fully exited the van. Daddy, Mrs. Patterson said there was a fire. Were you there? Are you hurt? You smell like smoke. The words tumbled out in a 7-year-old rush of concern. I'm okay, baby girl. Everyone's okay. Did you save people like you used to? The question hung between them. Daniel had never told Lily the details of why he'd quit the fire department, only that Mommy had gone to heaven and he'd decided to deliver flowers instead. Someday when she was older, he'd have to explain how her mother died trying to be brave like him, how his example had killed her as surely as the smoke. Just one person, he said finally, a bride who needed help. Was she pretty? Was she like a princess? Daniel thought of Emily in her ruined dress covered in soot but somehow luminous with survival. Yeah, I suppose she was. Good. Princesses should be saved. Lily pulled back, examining him critically. You have black stuff on your face. That's called soot. I need a shower. And then ice cream. You promised maybe ice cream. Did I? Daddy. She gave him the look that was pure Sarah exasperated affection mixed with determination. You always say maybe when you mean yes. He couldn't argue with that logic. 20 minutes later, showered and changed, he sat across from Lily at Murphy's ice cream parlor, watching her attack a sundae bigger than her head. The local news played on the TV mounted in the corner, already covering the chapel fire. Believed to be arson, the reporter was saying. The bride, Emily Carrington, daughter of real estate mogul Charles Carrington, was rescued by a local flower delivery driver. She's being treated for smoke inhalation, but is expected to make a full recovery. The wedding to Preston Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Technologies, has been postponed indefinitely. They showed a photo of Emily and Preston from some charity gala, her smile bright, but not reaching her eyes, his hand possessive on her waist. Then footage of the chapel fully engulfed the place where fairy tales were supposed to begin, reduced to char and memory. That's her. Lily pointed at the screen with her spoon dripping chocolate. The princess you saved. Don't point, baby. It's not polite. But she's pretty. Even prettier than the other princesses. Other princesses. In my books, she looks sad, though, even when she's smiling. From the mouths of babes. Daniel studied the photo again, seeing what his daughter saw a woman performing happiness rather than feeling it. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello. Mr. Hayes. This is Emily Carrington. I got your number from the fire chief. I hope you don't mind. Her voice was hoarse but steady. Daniel stepped outside away from the ice cream parlor's chatter. Miss Carrington, how are you feeling? Like I've been gargling gravel but alive, thanks to you. A pause. I wanted to thank you properly. Could we meet? I could buy you dinner, or... That's not necessary. Please, Her voice cracked slightly. I need to talk to someone who was there, someone who understands what really happened. The smart answer was no. The safe answer was to maintain distance, to go back to his small life with his daughter and his flowers and his ghosts. But something in her voice, that same trapped quality he'd heard in the chapel, made him hesitate. There's a coffee shop on Main Street, he heard himself say. Thompson's, tomorrow at 10. Yes, thank you. I'll be there. After she hung up, Daniel stood in the evening air wondering what he'd just agreed to. In the ice cream parlor, Lily waved at him through the window, face covered in chocolate, grinning. She'd lost another tooth that week, and the gap made her look younger and older simultaneously. 7 years old and already too perceptive, too aware that her father carried sadness like a shadow. He went back inside, helped her clean up, listened to her chatter about Mrs. Patterson's knitting lessons and the butterflies she'd seen, and how Tommy from her class was stupid, but not mean stupid, just confused stupid. Normal life, safe life. the kind Sarah had wanted for them. But that night after Lily was asleep, Daniel stood on his porch looking at the stars and thinking about trapped birds and burning chapels, and a woman who'd looked at him through smoke like he was her last hope. He thought about Preston's calculating expression and the accelerant placed just right to cause maximum casualties. He thought about Jim Rodriguez saying the fire was suspicious and his own instincts screaming that Emily was still in danger. Inside, Lily coughed in her sleep, just a normal cough, but it sent ice through his veins anyway. Ever since Sarah, every cough, every wheeze, every complaint about breathing sent him into hypervigilance. The doctor said Lily's lungs were fine, that she hadn't inherited her mother's asthma, but Daniel knew how quickly fine could become fatal. He checked on her, watching her chest rise and fall in the nightlight's glow. Her room was an explosion of pink and purple stuffed animals, standing guard drawings taped to every surface. She'd drawn their family last week, 3 figures holding hands, except one was floating above with wings. "That's Mommy watching us," she'd explained matter-of-factly, as if death was just another form of babysitting. The next morning came too soon. Daniel dropped Lily at summer camp, then drove to Thompson's Coffee Shop, a local institution that hadn't changed since the 1950s. Red vinyl booths, chrome fixtures, coffee strong enough to wake the dead. He chose a corner booth with clear sightlines to both exits, another habit that wouldn't die. Emily arrived 15 minutes late, looking nothing like the society bride from yesterday. Jeans, a simple sweater, hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup. She looked younger, more vulnerable, more real. She also looked exhausted with the kind of bone-deep weariness that came from more than just surviving a fire. "I'm sorry I'm late. Reporters were camped outside my parents' house. I had to sneak out the back like a teenager." "No problem. Coffee." "God, yes, I haven't slept. Every time I close my eyes, I smell smoke." Daniel signaled, the waitress ordered 2 coffees and reflexively added, "She'll have cream, no sugar," then caught himself. "Sorry, I don't know why I—" "That's right, actually. How did you know—" He didn't have an answer. Something about her just seemed like cream, no sugar softness without artificial sweetener. The coffee arrived, and Emily wrapped her hands around the mug like it was a lifeline. Up close, Daniel could see the bruises on her wrists where he'd grabbed her to pull her from the fire, could smell the lingering smoke in her hair, despite what must have been multiple showers. "The fire chief says it was arson," she said without preamble. "Someone tried to kill me, or all of us. I don't know which is worse." "What makes you think you were the target?" She looked up sharply. "You think so too." It wasn't a question. Daniel nodded slowly. The accelerant pattern was designed to trap anyone near the altar. You were supposed to be there the longest. The ceremony timing was precise. Someone knew exactly when you'd be most vulnerable. "In that dress I could barely walk, let alone run. 4 generations of Carrington women got married in that monstrosity. 20 pounds of silk and tradition." She laughed bitterly. "Mother's more upset about the dress than the attempted murder." "Do you have any enemies? Anyone who'd want to hurt you?" "Besides myself for agreeing to that wedding." She stirred her coffee absently. "I'm a Carrington. We collect enemies like some people collect stamps. Business rivals, spurned developers, environmental groups we've pissed off. Take your pick." "What about Preston?" The spoon clattered against the mug. "What about him?" "He was remarkably calm for someone whose bride almost died." "Preston doesn't do emotions. He does spreadsheets and profit margins and strategic advantages." Emily's voice was flat. "I was a strategic advantage. Carrington real estate connections plus Blackwood tech money equals empire." "So why marry him?" "Because that's what Carrington women do. We marry strategic advantages and have strategic children and throw strategic charity galas." She met his eyes. "You wouldn't understand." "My wife died 3 years ago," Daniel said quietly. "House fire. I was on shift saving strangers while she died, trying to save the neighbor's cat. So yeah, I understand doing what's expected even when it kills you." Emily's face softened. "I'm sorry. God, I'm sorry. Point is, everybody's got their cages. Question is whether you're ready to leave yours. Even if someone's trying to burn it down around me. Especially then." They sat in silence for a moment, the coffee shop's ambient noise, clattering dishes, morning conversation, the ancient radio playing country music filling the space between them. "There's something else," Emily said finally. "Preston had a massive insurance policy on me. Took it out 6 months ago, right after we got engaged. $10 million. Daniel's coffee mug stopped halfway to his lips. "That's a hell of a motive. It's also completely legal, and according to him, standard practice for high net worth couples." She pulled out her phone, showed him a text exchange. Preston asking if she was okay, reminding her about the insurance claims, suggesting they postpone the wedding until the investigation was complete. All perfectly reasonable, all somehow wrong. "He hasn't come to see me," she added. "Not once since the fire. Too busy handling things with his lawyers." "Are you staying with your parents?" "For now. Mother has the place locked down like Fort Knox. Security everywhere. She's convinced this is some competitor trying to tank our stock price." Emily traced the rim of her coffee mug. "But I can't shake the feeling that I'm not safe there either, that whoever did this knows exactly where I'll be." Daniel's protective instincts flared again, unwanted but undeniable. This wasn't his problem. He had Lily to think about, a quiet life to protect. But looking at Emily Young trapped, afraid he saw Sarah making a different choice. Saw what might have been if someone had been there to pull her from the smoke. "My cabin has a guest room," he heard himself say. "It's not fancy, but it's off the grid. Nobody would think to look for you there." Emily's eyes widened. "I couldn't impose—" "You wouldn't be. Lily, my daughter, she'd love the company. She thinks you're a princess. She saw the news. Atka. She sees everything. 7 going on 40. Daniel pulled out his wallet, left money for the coffee. "Think about it. Offer stands if you need it." He stood to leave, but Emily caught his hand. Her fingers were cold despite the hot coffee. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you care what happens to me?" Daniel thought about lying, about giving her something simple and digestible. But she deserved truth. "Because I've seen what happens when nobody intervenes, when people follow the script even when it's killing them. Sarah stayed in our apartment that night because I was supposed to be home. She waited until it was too late because that's what she always did. Waited for me to save the day. I can't watch someone else wait too long." Emily's grip tightened. "I'm not your wife, Daniel. You can't save her by saving me." "I know, but I can't stand by and watch you burn either." He left, then feeling her eyes on his back as he walked to his van. The smart money said this was a mistake, that getting involved with Emily Carrington and her complicated life would only bring trouble to his doorstep. But smart money had never pulled someone from a fire, never seen that moment when survival crystallizes into something harder and brighter than diamonds. His phone rang as he drove to pick up Lily. Jim Rodriguez. "Danny, you were right about the accelerant. Professional job, but they made one mistake. Security camera across the street caught someone entering the chapel at 3 a.m. Couldn't see the face, but the build matches Preston Blackwood." Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You bringing him in?" "Can't. His lawyers are already screaming about circumstantial evidence. Plus, he's got an alibi supposedly at a bachelor party until 4 a.m. We're checking it, but these rich folks, they close ranks fast." "So Emily's still in danger?" "Probably. We've got a unit watching the Carrington place, but—" Jim paused. "You really think the fiancé tried to kill her?" "I think someone wanted that wedding to end in flames, and Preston Blackwood stood to gain $10 million from it." Jesus. What kind of man tries to burn his bride alive? Daniel thought about Preston's calculating eyes, his immediate focus on insurance and liability. The kind who sees people as assets and liabilities instead of human beings. After picking up Lily from camp, she'd painted a picture of a flower that looked more like a cheerful explosion. They stopped at the grocery store. Daniel found himself buying extra food just in case. Lily noticed immediately. "Are we having a party?" "Maybe a guest." "The princess." Lily's eyes lit up. "Is the princess coming to our house?" "Maybe. Would that be okay?" "Yes, I can show her my rock collection and Mrs. Whiskers." Mrs. Whiskers was the stray cat they'd adopted last year, a cranky tabby who only tolerated Lily. "Princesses might not like rocks and cats, baby." "Then she's not a real princess?" Lily's logic was as always irrefutable. That evening, as Daniel was helping Lily with a puzzle, she insisted on doing the edges first, just like Sarah used to. His phone rang. "Emily. Is the offer still open?" Her voice was shaky. Someone broke into my room. Nothing taken, but they left. They left matches on my pillow, a whole box of them arranged to spell out, "Next time." Pack light. I'll pick you up in an hour. Daniel, I don't want to put you and Lily in danger. You're not. Whoever's doing this is a coward who attacks when people are vulnerable. They won't come after you somewhere protected. Text me when you're ready. He hung up and looked at Lily, who was pretending not to eavesdrop. Is the princess in trouble? Yeah, baby. She needs somewhere safe to stay. Our house is safe. You made it safe after Mommy died. All the smoke detectors and the fire ladder and the special locks. She placed another puzzle piece with careful precision. Plus we have Mrs. Whiskers. She's very fierce. As if summoned, the cat stalked through the room, paused to glare at them both, then continued to whatever pressing cat business awaited. Very fierce, Daniel agreed. An hour later, he pulled up to the service entrance of the Carrington estate. Emily was waiting with a single suitcase and a backpack, looking around nervously. She'd changed into dark clothes, her hair hidden under a baseball cap. She looked less like an heiress and more like a college student sneaking out past curfew. This feels insane, she said as she got in the van. Insane is staying somewhere your stalker knows to find you. Preston's not a stalker. He's what? Because from where I'm sitting, he's a man who took out a massive insurance policy on you and was remarkably unaffected when you almost died. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Then, he's exactly what my parents wanted for me. Successful, connected from the right family. We dated for 2 years, and I can count on one hand the times he asked what I wanted, instead of telling me what I should want. Why did you say yes when he proposed? Because saying no wasn't an option. Not for a Carrington woman. We don't get to choose our own adventures. She laughed bitterly. God, I sound pathetic. You sound trapped. There's a difference. They drove in silence through the mountain roads, the van's headlights cutting through darkness. Emily stared out the window at the passing trees, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. Tell me about your daughter, she said finally. Lily's 7 looks like her mother has my stubborn streak and Sarah's kind heart. She's convinced you're an actual princess, so I apologize in advance for whatever royal treatment she's prepared. I haven't been around kids much. What if she doesn't like me? She liked you from a photo. In person, you're doomed. She'll probably try to adopt you. The cabin looked warm and welcoming when they pulled up, lights glowing in the windows. Daniel had built it himself in the year after Sarah's death, needing something to do with his hands, while his heart learned to beat around the hole she'd left. It was simple, but solid. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a kitchen that opened to a living room with a stone fireplace. Nothing like the Carrington estate. But it was home. Lily was waiting at the door in her pajamas, the ones with unicorns that she'd insisted on buying, even though they were a size too big. She bounced on her toes as Emily got out of the van. Hi, I'm Lily. Are you really a princess? Do you like cats? We have one, but she's mean, except to me. Do you want to see my room? I cleaned it. The words tumbled out in an excited rush. Emily knelt down to Lily's level, something in her face softening. Hi, Lily. I'm Emily. I'm not really a princess, but thank you for letting me stay in your castle. It's not a castle. It's a cabin, Lily corrected seriously. But Daddy built it, so it's better than a castle. It has a tire swing. A tire swing definitely makes it better than a castle. Daniel watched them, something shifting in his chest. Emily looked different, talking to Lily, younger, less guarded, more like the person she might have been without the weight of the Carrington name. Come on. Lily grabbed Emily's hand. I'll show you the guest room. Daddy put flowers in there because you like flowers, right? Everyone likes flowers. Emily looked back at Daniel, a question in her eyes. He nodded, and she let Lily lead her into the house, chattering about everything from the best place to find cool rocks to why Mrs. Whiskers didn't like tuna despite being a cat. The guest room was simple, a bed dresser, small closet window looking out at the forest. Daniel had indeed put flowers in a vase on the nightstand, wildflowers Lily had picked that afternoon. Emily set down her suitcase, looking around with something like wonder. It's perfect, she said softly. The bathroom's across the hall, Daniel explained. Kitchen's open whenever you're hungry. Lily's bedtime is 8:30, but She'll try to convince you it's later. It's 8:45, Lily protested. 8:30. 8:35. Nice try, kiddo. 8:30. Lily sighed dramatically, then brightened. Emily, do you want to read my bedtime story? Daddy always does voices, but they're not very good. My voices are excellent, Daniel protested. Your dragon sounds like a sick cow. Emily laughed the first genuine laugh Daniel had heard from her. I'd love to read to you, Lily, but I should warn you my dragon might sound like a sick chicken. That's okay. Different is good. And that simply Emily Carrington, heiress, strategic advantage, nearly murdered bride, became Emily the woman hiding in their spare room who read bedtime stories with enthusiastic, if questionable, voice acting. Daniel listened from the hallway as Emily read about a brave mouse saving her family from a flood. Her voice growing more confident as Lily giggled at the silly parts and gasped at the scary ones. This was dangerous territory, letting someone into their carefully constructed life their safe routine. But hearing Lily laugh like that, seeing Emily shed her armor piece by piece, he couldn't regret it. After Lily was asleep, Daniel found Emily on the back porch wrapped in one of Sarah's old quilts he hadn't been able to donate. She was staring at the stars visible here in a way they never were in the city. Thank you, she said without looking at him, for all of this. For Lily. She's amazing. She gets that from her mother. Tell me about her. Sarah. Daniel sat in the other chair, the old wood creaking familiarly. She was a kindergarten teacher, loved her kids, loved growing things, loved terrible reality TV shows she'd never admit to watching. She had asthma badly, but never let it slow her down. We met at a fire safety presentation I was doing at her school. She heckled me about my PowerPoint. She sounds wonderful. She was. She also drove me crazy with her optimism. Always thought everything would work out, that people were basically good, that love conquered all. He paused. Maybe she was right. She loved that neighbor's cat enough to die trying to save it. Do you blame her? No. I blame myself for teaching her that running into danger was noble, for being the example that got her killed. Emily turned to look at him. You saved my life yesterday. That wasn't nothing. Yesterday I was just a delivery driver who couldn't ignore his instincts. No, Emily said firmly. Yesterday you were a hero. You ran into a burning building for a stranger. Most people can't even do that for people they love. They sat in comfortable silence, the night sounds of the forest surrounding them. Then Emily's phone buzzed. She looked at it and paled. What is it? She showed him the text. From Preston. Where are you? Your mother is worried. This is childish, Emily. Come home and we'll discuss the wedding like adults. How does he know I left? Emily's voice was shaky. Daniel took the phone, studied it. He doesn't necessarily. This could be phishing. Don't respond. What if he won't find you here? This place isn't in my name. I put it in a trust for Lily after Sarah died, off the grid like I promised. Another text came through. I know you're scared, but running won't solve anything. We have contracts to consider. Obligations. Contracts and obligations, Emily said flatly. That's his version of romance. Block his number. I can't. If I do, my parents will... She stopped. God, I'm 28 years old and still afraid of disappointing my parents. Block his number, yeah, Daniel repeated gently. Your parents aren't the ones getting threatening messages and burnt offerings on their pillow. Emily looked at him for a long moment, then blocked Preston's number with decisive taps. There. I did it. I actually did it. How does it feel? Terrifying and free. She pulled the quilt tighter. Is it wrong that the fire, as horrible as it was, feels like an escape, like the universe intervening to stop me from making the biggest mistake of my life? The universe didn't set that fire. A person did. Someone who wanted you dead. Or someone who wanted to set me free. Daniel frowned. You don't set someone free by trying to kill them. No, but what if they didn't mean for it to go that far? What if... Emily. His voice was firm. Whoever set that fire used accelerant. They blocked exits. They timed it for maximum occupancy. This wasn't a warning or a wake-up call. It was attempted murder. She deflated slightly. You're right. I know you're right. Some part of me wants to believe it wasn't Preston, that the man I was going to marry isn't capable of that. What does your gut tell you? My gut. She laughed humorlessly. My gut's been overruled by family obligation for so long I don't know what it sounds like anymore. The next morning arrived with Mrs. Whiskers yowling at Emily's door, apparently offended by the presence of a stranger in her domain. Daniel found Emily in the kitchen at dawn making coffee with the careful movements of someone trying not to wake the household. Sorry, she whispered. I couldn't sleep. Every time a branch creaked, I thought, You thought someone was coming for you. Daniel poured himself a cup, noting she'd already figured out his ancient coffee maker. That's normal. After Sarah died, I heard fire alarms in every sound for months. How did you get past it? I built this place. Needed something to do with my hands, something I could control. Every board, every nail, every stone in that fireplace, I placed them all. Made me feel like I could protect what mattered. Emily traced the grain of the wooden counter. I've never built anything, never created something that was just mine. The Carrington women don't build, we acquire, we merge, we strategically position. Maybe it's time to change that. Before Emily could respond, Lily shuffled in hair, a wild tangle dragging her favorite stuffed rabbit. Emily, you're still here. Did you think I'd leave? Emily asked, seemingly genuinely concerned. Sometimes people leave, Lily said matter-of-factly, climbing into a chair. But Daddy said you needed somewhere safe, and our house is the safest. We have 3 fire extinguishers and everything. Daniel started making Lily's breakfast scrambled eggs with cheese the way she liked them. Emily watched him move around the kitchen with practiced efficiency, this simple domestic routine that had become their morning ritual. Can I help? Emily asked. Can you make toast? I think I can manage that. It should have been awkward, this stranger in their kitchen, disrupting their careful balance. But Emily moved carefully, respectfully, finding the bread, figuring out the temperamental toaster that only worked if you held the lever down for 3 seconds. When she burned the first piece, Lily giggled. It's okay, Daddy burns toast all the time. I do not burn toast all the time. Remember Tuesday? The smoke detector went off. That was a mechanical failure. The toast was Black Daddy. Emily laughed, really laughed, and the sound filled the kitchen like sunlight. They ate breakfast together, Lily chattering about her plans for the day. Camp had a field trip to the nature center, and she was hoping to see the baby owls. Emily listened with genuine interest, asking questions about owls that delighted Lily and revealed she knew more about nature than her city girl appearance suggested. After Daniel dropped Lily at camp, he returned to find Emily on the porch, with his laptop frowning at the screen. I'm looking at Preston's company, she said. His financials. Something I should have done 2 years ago. And Blackwood Technologies is hemorrhaging money, has been for 18 months. He's been hiding it with creative accounting, but the signs are there. She turned the screen toward him. He needed this marriage, not just needed. My family's connections would have saved his company. That's a motive for marriage, not murder. Unless, Emily pulled up another window. 3 days before the fire, Preston increased my life insurance policy. Not just the amount, he changed the terms. In case of accidental death, the payout doubles. $20 million. Daniel felt the pieces clicking together. Enough to save his company, and then some. He must have known I was having doubts. I'd been asking questions, pushing back on wedding details. Small rebellions, but he noticed. Preston always notices deviations from the plan. Emily's hands shook slightly. I was going to go through with it anyway. Would have walked down that aisle, said those vows lived that life. The fire saved me from a different kind of death. Don't romanticize it, Daniel said sharply. You almost died. Really died, not metaphorically. I know, She closed the laptop. For 28 years, I've done everything right. Perfect grades, perfect internships, perfect engagement to the perfect man from the perfect family. And it was killing me so slowly I didn't even notice. Then yesterday, covered in soot and gasping for air, I felt more alive than I had in years. Daniel understood that feeling too well. The clarity that came with danger the way near death could make you suddenly urgently aware of living. He'd chased that feeling for years as a firefighter until it cost him everything. His phone rang. Jim Rodriguez. Danny, we've got a problem. Preston Blackwood's alibi checks out for the night before the fire. But here's the interesting part: he hired someone 2 weeks ago. Private security, he claimed. Except this security expert has a record. Arson for hire, though. We could never prove the hire part. You've got to be kidding me. It gets better. The guy's in the wind, disappeared right after the fire, but we found his motel room, and Danny, he had photos of Emily, dozens of them, daily routine schedules, every detail of the wedding planned out. Daniel looked at Emily, who was watching him with growing alarm. Is she safe? We don't know where this guy is, so I can't say yes. Keep her hidden. We're working on it, but these professionals, they're ghosts when they want to be. After Daniel hung up and explained, Emily went very still. He hired someone to kill me. Preston actually hired someone to burn me alive. We don't know that for certain. Yes, we do. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. He's a coward. Always has been. Has other people do his dirty work, hostile takeovers, firings, even breaking up with his ex-girlfriends. Of course he'd outsource murder too. Daniel's protective instincts roared to life. This wasn't just a scared woman anymore. This was an active threat, a professional killer potentially still hunting her. Every part of him that had been Captain Hayes wanted to take action to hunt down this threat and eliminate it. But he wasn't that person anymore. He was a single father who delivered flowers and couldn't afford to die playing hero. You should call your parents, get their security involved. No. Emily's response was immediate. They'd send me away, some secure facility in Switzerland or a yacht in international waters. I'd be safe, but I'd disappear. Just another Carrington asset to be protected and managed. Being managed beats being dead. Does it? Because from where I'm sitting, they're variations of the same thing. She stood pacing the porch with restless energy. I'm done running, done hiding, done being a victim in my own life. So what do you want to do? I want to fight back. I want to expose Preston for what he is. She stopped pacing, turned to face him. I want to learn to protect myself, the way you protected me. I'm not a teacher anymore. Haven't been for 3 years. But the knowledge is still there, the instincts. You proved that at the chapel. Daniel wanted to refuse, should refuse. Teaching Emily self-defense would mean spending more time with her, getting more involved, caring more than was safe. But looking at her fierce and frightened and determined, he saw a woman ready to transform, and some part of him wanted to witness that metamorphosis. Basic self-defense only, nothing fancy. Deal. They spent the afternoon in the clearing behind the cabin, Daniel teaching her fundamental moves, how to break a grip, where to strike for maximum effect, how to use an attacker's weight against them. Emily was a quick study athletic despite her privileged upbringing, and fearless in a way that concerned him. You're not trying to win a fight, he explained after she'd thrown herself into a move with too much aggression. You're trying to create an opportunity to escape. What if I can't escape? What if he corners me? Then you survive. Whatever it takes, you survive. She nodded, wiping sweat from her forehead. She'd stripped down to a tank top and yoga pants, and Daniel tried not to notice the way exertion brought color to her cheeks, the way determination transformed her from society princess to warrior. Again, she said. They practiced until the sun started sinking toward the mountains. Emily's movements became more fluid, more confident. She was finding her strength, and it was mesmerizing to watch. You're a natural, see, Daniel said as they took a water break. I had ballet for 15 years. It's just choreography with different intentions. She hesitated, then asked, could you teach me about fire? How to prevent it? How to escape it? Emily. I need to know. The nightmares. I keep dreaming I'm trapped again, but this time you don't come. I need to know I can save myself. So Daniel taught her about fire, how it moved, how to read smoke patterns, how to find exits by touch, how to protect her airways. He taught her about different types of fires and how to fight them, or when not to fight at all. She absorbed it all with intense focus, as if knowledge could armor her against future threats. When it was time to pick up Lily, Emily rode along. At the camp, parents gave them curious looks. Everyone knew Daniel Hayes, the widowed flower delivery man. But who was this beautiful woman in his passenger seat? Lily bounded over full of stories about owls and beetles and a boy named Marcus who'd eaten a bug on a dare. Emily, guess what? I told everyone you're staying with us. And Madison said you can't be a real princess because princesses don't stay in cabins. But I told her you're a different kind of princess, the kind that's brave and doesn't need a castle. Was that okay? Emily knelt down to Lily's level. That was perfect. I'd much rather be a brave princess than a castle princess. Good. Can we get ice cream? Daddy sometimes says yes on Wednesdays. It's Thursday, baby, Daniel corrected. But Emily's here, so it's Special Thursday, which is like Wednesday but better. Her logic was irrefutable. They went to Murphy's where the locals stared openly at their little trio. Daniel could practically hear the gossip mills starting the Hayes widow with a beautiful stranger, and so soon after the chapel fire that everyone had heard about. He ignored them, focused on Lily's detailed explanation of why chocolate was superior to vanilla, and Emily's thoughtful counter-argument in favor of strawberry. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Daniel found Emily researching on his laptop again. This time she was looking at self-defense courses, survival training, even firefighting basics. Planning to become an action hero? He asked, handing her a cup of tea. Planning to never be helpless again. She accepted the tea gratefully. I've spent my whole life letting other people make decisions for me. Where to go to school, what to study, who to date, who to marry. Even my rebellions were within acceptable parameters. But when I was trapped in that fire, I realized I'd been trapped long before the flames. So, what's your next move? I need to go back, face Preston, face my parents, end this properly. That's dangerous. The man who set the fire is still out there. Which is why I need you to come with me. She met his eyes. I know it's a lot to ask. You have Lily to think about, but I can't do this alone and I don't trust anyone else. Daniel should have said no, should have maintained boundaries, protected his quiet life. But Emily had started to feel less like an intrusion and more like she belonged here reading to Lily, making coffee in the morning, practicing self-defense with fierce determination. Tomorrow, there's a Blackwood Technologies board meeting. Preston will have to be there, can't send a representative. I want to confront him publicly where he can't manipulate the situation. That's playing with fire, Emily. No pun intended. I've already been burned. What's left to fear? That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He stood on the porch watching the stars and thinking about Sarah. What would she say about this? About him getting involved with Emily Carrington and her complicated, dangerous life? Sarah had always accused him of needing to save people, of being addicted to being the hero. Maybe she'd been right. Maybe that's what this was, another chance to play savior. But then he thought about Emily at dinner helping Lily cut her chicken, laughing at his daughter's jokes, fitting into their life like she'd always been there. This felt different. Not like saving someone, but like finding someone. A sound from inside made him turn. Emily stood in the doorway, wrapped in Sarah's quilt again, looking lost. Couldn't sleep either, she asked. Too much to think about. She joined him on the porch. I keep thinking about what happens after tomorrow. If I confront Preston, if I break free from my family's expectations, then what? I don't know how to be anything other than a Carrington. You're already something else. You're the woman who survived a fire, who learned to fight back, who reads bedtime stories with funny voices and argues the merits of strawberry ice cream. That's here in this bubble. Out there in the real world. The real world is what you make it, Emily. This place, these moments, they're as real as anything else. She moved closer to him, and he could smell the smoke that still lingered in her hair despite multiple washings. Daniel, A car engine in the distance cut her off. At this hour, on this remote road, it could only mean trouble. Daniel immediately went into protection mode. Inside. Now. Get Lily and go to the bathroom. It's the most defensible room. Lock the door. Daniel, go. Emily ran inside while Daniel grabbed the baseball bat he kept by the door. Not much against a professional, but better than nothing. The car got closer. Headlights sweeping across the trees. Daniel positioned himself on the porch, ready, but not aggressive, trying to project calm strength. The car pulled up a rental sedan. Preston Blackwood stepped out, looking immaculate despite the late hour. His expression was cold, calculating. Mr. Hayes. I understand you've been harboring my fiancée, ex-fiancée from what I understand, and she's a guest, not a fugitive. She's confused, traumatized from the fire, not thinking clearly. Preston approached slowly, hands visible, but body language threatening. I'm here to take her home. She doesn't want to go with you. What she wants is irrelevant. We have contracts, obligations, families depending on this union. Preston's mask slipped slightly, revealing something desperate underneath. Do you have any idea what's at stake here? What you're interfering with? I know you hired someone to kill her. Preston went very still. That's a serious accusation. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. The police know about your arsonist. They know about the insurance policy. It's over, Preston. You have no idea what you're talking about. But sweat beaded on Preston's forehead despite the cool night air. Emily belongs with me. We have an understanding. No, you had a business arrangement that you tried to terminate by fire. Now get off my property before I call the sheriff. Preston's composure cracked completely. You think you can protect her, a washed-up firefighter playing hero? I have resources you can't imagine. I will destroy you. Your little flower business, this cabin, that sweet daughter of yours. The threat to Lily flipped a switch in Daniel. Before his conscious mind could intervene, Preston was on the ground with Daniel's knee in his back and his arm twisted behind him. Listen very carefully. Daniel said, his voice low and dangerous. You come near Emily again, you come near my daughter, you even drive past this property, and I will end you. Not legally, not financially, physically, and I'll make it look like an accident. Believe me, I know how. He released Preston, who scrambled to his feet, suit covered in dirt, face twisted with rage and humiliation. This isn't over, Preston snarled. Yes, it is. The police are building their case. Your company is failing. Your reputation is about to be destroyed. The only choice you have left is how much dignity you leave with. Get in your car. Don't come back. Preston stood there for a moment, calculating odds, then apparently decided retreat was the better option. He got in his car and drove away, tires spinning in the gravel. Daniel found Emily in the hallway holding a sleepy, confused Lily. Was that a bad man, Daddy? Lily asked. Yes, baby, but he's gone now. Did you fight him like a superhero? Something like that. Good. Emily needs a superhero. Lily yawned hugely. Can I go back to bed now? After Lily was settled, Emily and Daniel sat in the kitchen, the adrenaline slowly fading. He threatened Lily, Emily said quietly. This is what I was afraid of. My problems becoming your problems. Our problems, Daniel corrected. He threatened my daughter. That makes it very personal. What if he comes back? What if he sends someone else? Then we'll be ready. But I don't think he will. Preston's a coward and a bully. Now that he knows he can't intimidate us, he'll look for easier targets. Emily was quiet for a moment. Then, you were different with him. Dangerous. That wasn't the flower delivery man talking. No, that was the father. And the man who... He paused, not sure how to finish. The man who what? The man who cares about you more than he should. The words hung between them, honest and complicated. Emily reached across the table, took his hand. I care about you too, you and Lily both. These past few days, I felt more like myself than I have in years. Or maybe I'm feeling like who I could be if I was brave enough. You are brave enough. You survived the fire. You stood up to your family. You're rebuilding your life. With your help. We all need help sometimes. They sat their hands linked across the kitchen table while the night deepened around them. Tomorrow would bring confrontations and complications. But tonight, in this moment, they had found something. Neither had been looking for a connection forged in crisis, but tempered with something deeper, something that might survive beyond the immediate danger. Emily squeezed his hand. Thank you. For everything. For saving me at the chapel, for taking me in, for protecting me from Preston, for showing me what a real family looks like. Emily, I know this is complicated, and you have Lily to think about, and we barely know each other. But Daniel, when I'm here, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in my life. Is that crazy? If it is, then I'm crazy too, because having you here feels... He searched for words. It feels like something I didn't know was missing, just clicked into place. They stayed at the table talking until dawn began to lighten the sky, sharing stories of their pasts, their fears, their hopes. Emily talked about the weight of family expectations, the suffocating presence of old money and older traditions. Daniel talked about the guilt of surviving when Sarah hadn't the challenge of raising Lily alone, the quiet desperation of going through motions without feeling alive. "We're both haunted," Emily said as the first birds began to sing. "You by what you lost, me by what I never had. Maybe that's why this works. We understand each other's ghosts. Or maybe we're just two people who needed to almost lose everything to realize what we really wanted." Lily woke up early, as children do, seemingly unaffected by the night's drama. She climbed into Emily's lap at the breakfast table as if she belonged there, chattering about her dreams and her plans for the day. "Emily, are you staying forever?" she asked with a child's directness. I don't know, sweetie." "You should stay. Daddy smiles more when you're here. And you make good toast, not burnt like Daddy's." "My toast is not burnt," Daniel protested weakly. "Tuesday, Daddy? The smoke detector?" Emily laughed, hugging Lily closer. "We'll see." "Okay. Adult stuff is complicated." "Adults make everything complicated. Kids know better. If you like someone, you keep them. Like Mrs. Whiskers. We liked her, so we kept her." "Lily people aren't cats," Daniel said. "No, but the principle is the same," Lily said seriously, and both adults had to admit she had a point. After breakfast, Daniel called Jim Rodriguez to report Preston's visit. Jim wasn't happy about the confrontation, but admitted it might have been necessary. "We're close to an arrest," Jim said. "The arsonist made a mistake, used a credit card at a gas station near the chapel. We've got him on camera buying accelerant. Once we pick him up, he'll likely flip on Preston to save himself." "How long?" "Day or two at most. Keep her safe until then." The plan to confront Preston at the board meeting was obviously off. He now knew where Emily was, and the element of surprise was gone. Instead, Emily made a different decision. "I need to see my parents, tell them everything. They deserve to know what kind of man they were pushing me to marry. They might not believe you." "Probably not, but I need to try. Will you come with me?" Daniel thought about it. Meeting the Carringtons, entering their world, making this relationship, whatever it was, more real and complicated. Then he looked at Emily, brave and determined despite everything, and knew his answer. "Of course." They left Lily with Mrs. Patterson, though she protested being left out of the adventure. The drive to the Carrington estate was tense, Emily, growing quieter as they got closer to her parents' world. The estate was everything Daniel had expected, massive, pristine design to intimidate. The security at the gate looked suspicious of Daniel's van until Emily leaned over to identify herself. "Miss Carrington, your parents have been worried sick." "I'm fine, Thomas. This is Mr. Hayes. He saved my life at the chapel." The security guard's demeanor changed immediately. "Of course, please go right up." The main house looked like something from a movie, all marble and crystal and old money confidence. Emily's parents were waiting in what she called the small parlor, though it was bigger than Daniel's entire cabin. Charles Carrington was exactly what Daniel had pictured. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, radiating the kind of power that came from generations of wealth. Patricia Carrington was perfectly preserved, elegant in the way that took serious money and effort to maintain. "Emily, where have you been? Preston said you were staying with some person." "Mother, father. This is Daniel Hayes. He pulled me from the fire." "Yes, we heard." Charles's tone was dismissive. "Thank you for your service, Mr. Hayes. We'll certainly compensate you appropriately." "I don't want your money," Daniel said quietly. Both Carringtons looked shocked, as if he'd spoken in tongues. "Everyone wants something," Patricia said. "You're right. I want Emily safe, which is why she's been staying with me. Preston hired someone to burn down the chapel. He was trying to kill her for the insurance money." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Charles laughed, cold and dismissive. "That's absurd. Preston Blackwood would never." "His company is failing," Emily interrupted. "He needed our money, our connections. When he realized I was having doubts, he decided $20 million in insurance was better than a reluctant bride." "Emily, you're being dramatic. The fire was an accident, or, at worst, some competitor trying to embarrass us." Preston loves you. Preston loves what I represent, what I can do for him, just like you love what this merger would do for the family portfolio. Patricia's face flushed. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth, stand up for myself, choose my own life. Emily's voice rose with years of suppressed frustration. I almost died, Mother. Died wearing that ridiculous dress you insisted on marrying a man you chose, living a life you planned. And you're more upset about the dress than my life. Emily, you're being emotional. Yes, I'm being emotional. I'm feeling things, real things, not the rehearsed responses you taught me. Emily stood trembling with rage and release. I'm done. Done being a Carrington chess piece, done with strategic marriages and suitable matches, done with all of it. If you walk away from this family, Charles started. What? You'll cut me off, disinherit me. Go ahead. I'd rather be poor and free than rich and buried alive. She turned to Daniel. Let's go. There's nothing for me here. But as they headed for the door, Patricia called out, Emily, wait. They turned. Patricia's perfect composure had cracked, revealing something vulnerable underneath. Are you happy with him? This life you're choosing? Emily looked at Daniel, then back at her mother. For the first time in my life, yes. I'm happy. I'm terrified and uncertain and completely unprepared, but I'm happy. Patricia nodded slowly. Then go. But Emily, be careful. Preston's more dangerous than you know. His family, they don't accept failure. It was the closest to maternal concern Emily had probably ever heard. She nodded, and they left. In the van, Emily was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I just divorced my entire life. How does it feel? But like jumping off a cliff. Terrifying and exhilarating, and I have no idea where I'll land. She looked at him. Thank you for being there, for standing with me. Always, Sal, Daniel said and meant it. They were almost back to the cabin when Daniel noticed the car following them. Black sedan professional driver keeping perfect distance. His hands tightened on the wheel. We have company. Emily turned to look. That's not Preston's usual car. No, this is someone else. Someone better. The sedan stayed with them through every turn, not trying to hide, not trying to close distance. Just following, watching, waiting. Daniel's mind raced through options. Leading them to the cabin was out Lily would be home soon, but confrontation on a mountain road was equally dangerous. His phone rang. Unknown number. Daniel Hayes. The voice was professional cold. Who is this? Someone who'd like to discuss terms. Pull over at the scenic overlook ahead. Just to talk. Daniel glanced at Emily, who'd gone pale, but nodded. He pulled into the overlook, positioning the van for quick escape if needed. A man got out of the sedan. Middle-aged, unremarkable, except for the way he moved, too smooth to aware. Professional muscle. Mr. Hayes, Miss Carrington. My employer would like the situation resolved quietly. Your employer being Preston Blackwood, Daniel said. My employer being someone who has invested significantly in Mr. Blackwood's future. The wedding needs to happen. Miss Carrington needs to reconsider her position. Or what Emily's voice was steadier than Daniel expected. Or things become complicated, for everyone. Mr. Hayes has a daughter, I understand. 7 years old, attends Mountain View Day Camp, allergic to strawberries. The threat was subtle but clear. They'd researched. Lily knew her routines, her vulnerabilities. Daniel's vision went red. If you go near my daughter, no one wants that. We're businessmen, Mr. Hayes. We prefer negotiation to other methods. Miss Carrington returns to Mr. Blackwood, the wedding proceeds as planned, and everyone stays safe. Simple. I'd rather die, Emily said flatly. That can be arranged too, though it would be messier. The insurance would still pay out, though Mr. Blackwood would have to play the grieving widower. He's prepared for either scenario. Daniel stepped forward, putting himself between Emily and the man. Here's a counteroffer. You leave now. You forget about Emily, about my daughter, about all of this. And I don't call my friend at the FBI who specializes in organized crime. The man smiled thinly. You're bluffing. Am I Jim Rodriguez, Senior Agent, Denver office? We served together in Iraq before I became a firefighter. He already knows about Preston about the fire. How much more do you want him to know about your employer's investments? It wasn't entirely true. Jim was local law enforcement, not FBI. But the man didn't know that, and doubt flickered across his face. "This is bigger than you understand," he said finally. "Walk away, both of you. Disappear. That's the only way this ends well." "We're not running," Emily said, stepping beside Daniel, "and we're not afraid of you." The man studied them for a long moment. Then he smiled a cold, professional expression. "Everyone's afraid of something, Miss Carrington. It's just a matter of finding the right pressure point." He walked back to his sedan, got in, and drove away. But the threat lingered like smoke. Daniel immediately called Mrs. Patterson, told her to keep Lily inside, lock the doors, and call him if anyone unusual showed up. Then he called Jim Rodriguez and told him everything. "This is escalating," Jim said. "We need to move faster. I'm putting protection on your place." "I can protect my own family." "Not against these people, Danny. This is organized crime territory now. Let us help." After the call, Daniel and Emily sat in the van engine running, both processing what had just happened. "This is my fault," Emily said. "I brought this to your door, to Lily. No, Preston brought this. His choices, his desperation, not yours. But if I hadn't stayed with you, then you'd probably be dead and Lily and I would go on with our small, safe, half-lived life." Daniel turned to face her. "Emily meeting you, having you in our home, it's woken something in me I thought died with Sarah. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, it's complicated. But it's also real and vital and worth fighting for. Even if it puts Lily at risk. Life is risk. Sarah died in our own apartment, the safest place she knew. Hiding doesn't guarantee safety. It just guarantees you miss out on living." Emily was quiet then. "So what do? We fight back, but smart, strategic. First we get Lily somewhere safe, then we go on offense." "How?" Daniel smiled grimly. "Preston's not the only one who can hire professionals. I know people too. People who specialize in protecting families from exactly this kind of threat." He made a call to Marcus Webb, a private security specialist he'd known from his firefighting days. Marcus had left the department to start his own firm after his partner was killed by a stalker who'd fixated on his partner's wife. "Danny Hayes. Been a long time. Marcus, I need your help. My family's been threatened. I'll be there in 2 hours." That simple. No questions, no hesitation. The Brotherhood of First Responders ran deep. They picked up Lily from Mrs. Patterson's, Emily holding her extra tight. Lily, with her uncanny perception, knew something was wrong. "Are the bad men coming back?" "We're going to make sure they can't," Daniel told her. "But we might need to stay somewhere else for a few days, like a vacation." "With Emily." "With Emily? Then it's okay, as long as we're together." The simple faith in her voice nearly broke him. This little girl who'd lost her mother, who'd learned too young that people could leave and never come back, still believed in the power of staying together. Marcus arrived as promised, 6'4" of controlled power with eyes that missed nothing. He listened to the whole story, asked pointed questions, then laid out a plan. "First, we get you to a secure location. I have a safe house about an hour from here. Then we dig into Preston Blackwood's finances, find the real money behind him. These investment types always have weak spots, usually involving the IRS or SEC. We find the weakness, we apply pressure, they back off." "That's simple," Emily asked. "Simple plan, complex execution, but I'm very good at execution." Within hours, they were relocated to Marcus's safe house, a comfortable cabin that looked normal from the outside, but had security measures that would make a bank vault jealous. Lily treated it like an adventure, especially when Marcus taught her a secret whistle that was actually a panic signal. That night, as Lily slept between them on the large bed she'd had nightmares and refused to sleep alone, Emily whispered to Daniel in the darkness, "Is this what family feels like? This fierce need to protect each other?" "Yeah," Daniel whispered back. "This is exactly what it feels like. I never had this growing up. Everything was transactional, strategic. This is different." "This is love," Daniel said simply. Emily was quiet for so long he thought she'd fallen asleep. Then, "I love you too, both of you. However this ends, I need you to know that. Daniel reached across Lily's sleeping form to take Emily's hand. "We're going to get through this. All of us. Together. Promise? Promise." But even as he made the vow, Daniel knew promises were fragile things in a world where wedding chapels could burn and love could be a liability. Still holding Emily's hand while his daughter slept safely between them, he chose to believe in the promise, in the possibility of a future where they were a family, not forged by crisis, but tempered by choice. Outside, Marcus kept watch, a guardian angel with a military background and very particular skills. And somewhere in the darkness, forces aligned, some for them, some against. The fire at the chapel had been just the beginning. What came next would determine if their small, unlikely family would survive or become another casualty of other people's greed. But for now, in this moment, they were together and safe and alive. Sometimes that was all the victory you could ask for. Sometimes it was enough. Tomorrow would bring new battles. But tonight, they had each other. The morning came with Marcus knocking softly on their door, his expression grim. Daniel slipped out of bed, carefully trying not to wake Emily or Lily, and followed Marcus to the kitchen where coffee was already brewing. "We have a problem," Marcus said without preamble. "My contact at the FBI says Preston's been arrested." "That's good news, isn't it?" "Should be, except he made bail in 2 hours. Someone with serious money wanted him free." Marcus pulled out his tablet showing financial records. "The bail was posted by Whitman Industries. They're a shell company, but I traced them back. Russian connections, Danny, the kind that don't accept losses." Daniel's blood ran cold. This was bigger than just Preston's desperation. This was organized crime protecting an investment. How deep is Preston in with them? 20 million deep. They fronted him the money to save his company, expecting the Carrington marriage to be their collateral. When that fell through, Marcus didn't need to finish. They both knew what happened when you couldn't pay back the Russian mob. Emily appeared in the doorway, hair mussed from sleep, wearing one of Daniel's old fire department t-shirts. "I heard voices. What's wrong?" Daniel and Marcus exchanged glances, then Daniel told her everything. Emily sank into a chair, processing. "So Preston wasn't just trying to kill me for insurance. He was trying to pay off the mob." "Looks that way. The marriage would have given him access to your family's resources. When you started having doubts, he switched to Plan B. And now that Plan B failed, now they're all desperate," Marcus said. "Which makes them dangerous." Lily wandered in, rubbing her eyes. "Why is everyone up? Is it morning?" "It's early morning, sweetheart," Daniel said, lifting her into his lap. "Want some juice?" As he got Lily settled with breakfast, his phone rang. Jim Rodriguez. "Danny, you need to see the news." Daniel turned on the small TV in the corner. The local news was running a breaking story. Preston Blackwood found dead in his apartment. Apparent suicide, though the investigation was ongoing. Emily gasped. "Oh my God." "That's not suicide, but," Marcus said flatly. "That's cleanup. They're cutting losses." "Preston's dead, child," Lily asked, looking between the adults with concern. "The bad man is gone, baby," Daniel said carefully. "Good." He was mean to Emily. The innocent simplicity of her response contrasted sharply with the complex horror of the situation. Preston was dead, but that didn't mean they were safe. If anything, it meant the people behind him were escalating. Daniel's phone rang again. Unknown number. "Mr. Hayes?" The same cold professional voice from the scenic overlook. "You've seen the news, I assume. What do you want?" "Mr. Blackwood's death is unfortunate, but his debts remain. Miss Carrington's family has resources. We're willing to negotiate a business arrangement. She's not for sale." "Everything is for sale, Mr. Hayes. It's just a matter of price. We're offering a simple transaction. Miss Carrington agrees to a payment plan using her family's assets. In exchange, everyone stays safe." "How much book?" 20 million plus interest. Call it 30 million total." Emily grabbed the phone. "I don't have access to that kind of money. My parents cut me off." "Then you'll need to reconcile with them. Family is important, Miss Carrington. Surely they wouldn't want to see their daughter suffer because of a financial disagreement." "You're threatening to hurt me if I don't pay Preston's debts." "We're suggesting that debts have a way of transferring. Mr. Blackwood is no longer available to pay. You were to be his wife. In certain circles, that makes you responsible." "That's insane. We never married." Details. You have 48 hours to arrange the first payment, $5 million. After that, we'll discuss terms for the remainder. The line went dead. Emily stood frozen, phone still in her hand. $30 million. They want $30 million, which you don't have, Daniel said. No, and even if I went crawling back to my parents, they wouldn't pay. Not for this. They'd say it was my choice to leave my consequence to face. Marcus was already on his phone making calls. I'm reaching out to my FBI contact. This is extortion, clear and simple. But will they be able to stop it in 48 hours? Emily's voice was hollow. Daniel pulled her into his arms, feeling her tremble. We'll figure this out. We always do. This isn't a burning building you can pull me from, Daniel. This is the Russian mob. They don't stop. Neither do we. Lily looked up from her cereal. Are the bad men trying to hurt Emily again? We're going to stop them, Daniel said firmly. Good. Emily's ours now. We protect what's ours. She said it with such certainty, such fierce determination in her small voice, that it broke and rebuilt Daniel's heart simultaneously. Marcus ended his call. FBI is interested but needs more evidence. The phone calls aren't enough. We need proof of the threats, proof of the connection to Preston's death. How do we get that? We make them come to us. Set up a meeting record, everything. That's dangerous, Daniel protested. Everything about this is dangerous, but it's our best shot. Emily straightened that determination Daniel had come to admire, filling her eyes. I'll do it. I'll set up the meeting. Emily, no. Daniel, I'm tired of running, tired of hiding. These people think I'm weak, that I'm just some rich girl they can manipulate. Let's show them they're wrong. Over the next hour, they planned carefully. Marcus had surveillance equipment that would make the NSA jealous. Emily would agree to meet, but on their terms in a location Marcus could control. Daniel would be back up close enough to intervene if needed. Emily made the call, her voice steady, despite the fear Daniel could see in her eyes. This is Emily Carrington. I want to discuss terms. Miss Carrington, how refreshing to hear from you directly. I can get the money, but I need guarantees. Papers showing Preston's debts will be cleared. Legal documents. That can be arranged. Where would you like to meet? There's a restaurant in Vale, the Blackbird. Private room in the back. Tomorrow at noon. Public place. Smart. Very well. Come alone. No, I bring my financial advisor. This is a business transaction. You said so yourself. A pause. Acceptable. Tomorrow at noon. After she hung up, Emily's hands shook. Daniel took them in as steadying them. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Not just for me. For us. For the family we're building. She looked at Lily, who was coloring at the table, humming to herself. She deserves a life without looking over her shoulder. We all do. That afternoon, while Marcus made preparations, Daniel took Lily for a walk in the woods behind the safe house. She held his hand, skipping occasionally, pointing out birds and interesting rocks. Daddy, is Emily going to stay with us forever? I hope so, baby. Me too. She makes you happy. You don't have the sad eyes when she's around. I have sad eyes. Since Mommy went to heaven, but they're getting better. Emily's helping them get better. The wisdom of children never ceased to amaze him. Lily saw everything understood more than she should have to at 7 years old. Would it be okay with you if Emily stayed, if we became a real family? Lily stopped walking, turned to face him with serious eyes. Daddy, we're already a real family. We just need to make it official. How do we do that? Well, in movies, people get married and live happily ever after. Life's not a movie, sweetheart. No, but sometimes it can be better. Movies end. Life keeps going. That evening, as they prepared for tomorrow's dangerous meeting, Daniel found Emily on the porch of the safe house watching the sunset. She'd been quiet since the phone call, processing everything. Scared? He asked, sitting beside her. Terrified, but also ready. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. It's how I felt every time we responded to a fire. Scared, but ready. How did you do it? Face the danger over and over. By focusing on what mattered, saving lives, protecting people, making a difference. He took her hand. Now I have something even more important to focus on. Lily, both of you. This family we're building against all odds and logic. Emily turned to face him fully. Daniel, if something happens tomorrow, nothing's going to happen. Marcus and I won't let it. But if it does, I need you to know something. She took a breath. These past days with you and Lily have been the happiest of my life. Not the easiest, definitely not the safest, but the happiest. You showed me what real love looks like. Not strategic partnerships or advantageous mergers, but real messy, dangerous, beautiful love. Emily. She pressed a finger to his lips. Let me finish. If something happens, I want you to tell Lily that I loved her like she was my own, that she taught me about bravery and wonder and the importance of not burning toast, and I want you to know that you saved me long before you pulled me from that fire. You saved me from a life that was slowly suffocating me. Daniel kissed her, then pouring everything he couldn't say into the connection. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Nothing's going to happen. We're going to get through this, get married, give Lily the family she deserves, and live a beautifully boring life where the biggest danger is my burnt toast. Promise. Promise. That night, they all slept in the same bed again, Lily insisting she needed to keep them both safe. As Daniel lay awake, listening to their breathing, he thought about Sarah, wondered what she would think of all this. He liked to think she'd approve, that she'd want him to find love again, to give Lily a complete family. But mostly he thought she'd be proud that he was fighting for something again, not just existing, but truly living. The next morning came too quickly. Marcus had already left for the restaurant, setting up surveillance equipment. Daniel would follow, with Emily playing the role of her financial advisor. Remember, Marcus said over the phone, get them talking. We need them to explicitly state the threats, the connection to Preston, the amount. The more they say, the stronger the case. Emily dressed carefully, professional, but not flashy, trying to look like someone who had access to money but wasn't flaunting it. Daniel wore his only suit, the one from Sarah's funeral that he'd sworn he'd never wear again. You look handsome, Emily said, adjusting his tie. You look brave, he replied. I don't feel brave. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in spite of fear. Who said that? My old fire chief, right before we went into a chemical plant fire that should have killed us all. Did it? We're here, aren't we? Lily hugged them both goodbye, extracting promises that they'd come back safe and bring ice cream. Mrs. Patterson had arrived to watch her, the older woman's face grim with understanding. You bring her back safe, she told Daniel quietly. That little girl needs a mother, and she's chosen Emily. I will. The drive to Vale was tense. Emily fidgeted with her phone, reviewing the wire transfer documents Marcus had created, fake but convincing enough to buy them time. What if they know it's a trap? She asked. Then we improvise, but they won't. They're confident, arrogant. They think they hold all the cards. Don't they? No, they hold fear. We hold something stronger. What's that? Each other. The Blackbird was an upscale restaurant that catered to Vale's wealthy ski crowd. Even in summer, it maintained an air of exclusivity. The hostess recognized Emily immediately. Miss Carrington, we haven't seen you in ages. Your usual table. Actually, I'm meeting someone in the private room. The hostess's smile faltered slightly. Oh, yes, they're already here. This way. The private room was dimly lit, intimate. 3 men sat at the table, the professional from the scenic overlook, and 2 others who looked like they'd stepped out of a Moscow nightclub, expensive suits not quite hiding the muscle underneath. Miss Carrington, Mr. Hayes, Daniel said, financial advisor. Of course. The professional's smile was cold. Shall we discuss business? Emily sat Daniel beside her, hyper-aware of every exit, every potential weapon, every threat. Marcus was listening through the wire Emily wore, recording everything. First, I want to see proof of Preston's debts, Emily said. One of the Russians slid a folder across the table. Everything is here. Loans, interest, penalties. Mr. Blackwood was quite desperate. Emily reviewed the documents, her face carefully neutral. This says 20 million principal, plus interest, plus penalties for non-payment, 30 million total as discussed. And if I pay, this all goes away. No more threats, no more contact. We're businessmen, Miss Carrington. Once debts are settled, business is concluded. And if I can't pay, the professional leaned forward. Let's not explore that option. You have such a lovely new family. The little girl, what's her name, Lily, charming child. It would be a shame if what? Emily's voice was steel. If she had to grow up without parents. Again. Daniel's hands clenched under the table. Every instinct screamed to attack, but he held still, knowing Marcus needed more. You're threatening a child. We're discussing consequences, cause and effect. You pay, everyone stays safe. You don't. He shrugged eloquently. I need time to arrange the full amount. You have 48 hours for the first $5 million. Then we discuss terms for the rest. I can do $5 million today, Emily said, pulling out her phone. Wire transfer, but I need guarantees. What kind of guarantees? That you'll leave Daniel and Lily alone. They're not part of this. They became part of this when you involved them. But pay your debts, and they have nothing to fear. Emily began entering information into her phone, the fake transfer Marcus had set up. I need the account information. As the Russian gave her the routing numbers, he made a crucial mistake. This is the same account we used for Blackwood's transactions. The FBI traces those, they find nothing. We're very careful. There it was, direct connection between Preston's debts and these men. Marcus would have enough. Transfer initiated, Emily said, showing them the confirmation screen. It'll process within 24 hours. Excellent. We'll verify receipt and then discuss the remaining balance. Actually, Emily said, standing, we're done discussing anything. The men tensed. Excuse me? This conversation has been recorded. The FBI has everything, your threats, your admission to the Preston connection, the extortion attempt. They're probably already freezing that account. The professional stood slowly. You think you're clever. No, I think I'm done being a victim. One of the Russians reached inside his jacket, but Daniel was already moving. 3 years of retirement hadn't dulled his instincts. The man went down hard, Daniel's elbow connecting with his temple. The second Russian lunged, but Daniel had played this game before, redirecting momentum using the attacker's weight against him. The professional pulled a gun aimed at Emily. Time slowed. Daniel saw the finger tightening on the trigger, saw Emily's eyes widen, saw death coming for someone he loved. Again. He moved without thinking, putting himself between Emily and the gun. The shot was thunderous in the small room. Daniel felt the impact, the burn of the bullet tearing through his shoulder, but adrenaline kept him moving. He crashed into the gunmen, both of them going down, wrestling for the weapon. Daniel! Emily's scream cut through everything. Marcus burst through the door with FBI agents' weapons drawn. Nobody move, FBI. The professional tried to run, but didn't make it 2 steps before being tackled. The Russians surrendered, knowing they were outnumbered. Daniel slumped against the wall, hand pressed to his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. Emily dropped beside him, tears streaming. You idiot! You beautiful, brave idiot! Why did you do that? Couldn't lose you too, he managed. You're not losing anyone, she said fiercely. You promised. Boring life, bad toast, remember. Still planning on it. Just need small detour to hospital. The EMTs arrived, loading Daniel onto a gurney. Emily held his hand, refusing to let go, even when they said she couldn't ride in the ambulance. I'm his fiancée, she declared. I'm coming. Daniel smiled through the pain. Fiancée. Shut up. You're going to marry me, Daniel Hayes. Someone has to make sure you don't do anything this stupid again. That's terrible proposal. You want romantic, don't get shot next time. At the hospital, as Daniel was wheeled into surgery, Emily kissed him. Don't you dare die on me. Wouldn't dream of it. Lily would never forgive me. The surgery took 3 hours. 3 hours of Emily pacing the waiting room, Marcus keeping her updated on the FBI operation they'd seized. Documents, frozen accounts had enough to put the entire organization away. The threat was over. When the surgeon finally emerged, Emily nearly collapsed with relief. He's fine. Bullet went clean through, missed anything vital. He'll be sore for a while, but he'll make a full recovery. Emily cried, then really cried, all the fear and tension of the past week pouring out. Marcus awkwardly patted her shoulder. He's tough, Marcus said. Seen him walk away from worse. He shouldn't have to be tough. He should get to be safe, happy. He's been through enough. Maybe. But he chose to go through this for you. That means something. When Daniel woke, Emily was there holding his hand. Her eyes were red, but she was smiling. Hey, hero. Hey, princess. His voice was rough. Lily? On her way with Mrs. Patterson. She's bringing you a get well card. Apparently it has a lot of glitter. She knows glitter makes everything better. Daniel. Emily squeezed his hand. I meant what I said. About marriage. Unless you don't... Emily Carrington. Are you proposing to me in a hospital room while I'm on pain medication? Yes? Good. Because I was going to propose to you as soon as I could stand without falling over. You beat me to it. So that's a yes. That's a yes to everything. Marriage, family, burnt toast for the rest of our lives. Emily kissed him gently, mindful of his condition. I love you. I love you too, both of you. The door burst open, and Lily ran in, followed by a harried Mrs. Patterson. Daddy? Emily, are you okay? Mrs. Patterson said you were heroes, and heroes sometimes get hurt, but they always get better. We're okay, baby, Daniel assured her. We're all okay. Lily climbed carefully onto the bed, settling between them. Good, because we have wedding planning to do. I want to be the flower girl, and Mrs. Whiskers should be the ring bearer. Cats can't be ring bearers, Emily laughed. Our cat can. She's special. And sitting there in a hospital room, bandaged and bruised, but together they felt special too. They'd survived fire and threats and bullets. They'd chosen each other against all odds and opposition. 2 months later, they married in Daniel's backyard. No grand chapel, no designer dress worth more than a house, no strategic guest list. Just family, including Marcus and Mrs. Patterson and Jim Rodriguez. Emily wore a simple sundress. Daniel's shoulder was still stiff but healed. Lily, as promised, was flower girl, though she threw the petals with more enthusiasm than grace. Mrs. Whiskers, despite Lily's best efforts, refused to participate. Charles and Patricia Carrington didn't attend, but they sent a card. Inside, Patricia had written, "Be happy." It was enough. More than Emily had expected. As they exchanged vows, Emily thought about the fire that had brought them together, how destruction had led to creation. She'd lost a life she'd never wanted and gained one she'd never imagined possible. I promise, she said, looking into Daniel's eyes, to love you through fires and quiet mornings, through danger and safety, through burnt toast and perfect coffee. I promise to protect what we've built and to keep building more. I promise to love Lily as my own and to give her siblings if she wants them. Siblings, Lily shouted from her spot as flower girl. Yes, please. Everyone laughed. Daniel took his turn. I promise to keep saving you even when you don't need saving. I promise to let you save me too. I promise to teach you to make toast properly and to eat it even when you burn it. I promise to build our life with the same care I built this house, with strong foundations and room to grow. When they kissed, Lily cheered the loudest. Later, as the small reception wound down, Emily found herself standing where she'd stood that first night looking at the stars. But this time she wasn't running from anything. She was home. Daniel joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind, careful of his still healing shoulder. Regrets? He asked. None. You, just one. She turned concerned. What? I should have let you make the coffee this morning. You really are better at it. She laughed, leaning into him. I love you. I love you too. Lily ran over, still in her flower girl dress, but now covered in cake. Family hug. They embraced her, their little family complete. Born from fire, tested by danger, but ultimately forged by choice and love. Inside, the phone rang. Daniel ignored it. Whatever new crisis waited could wait a little longer. Right now he had everything he needed, his daughter, his wife, and the promise of all the ordinary, extraordinary days to come. The Carrington-Blackwood wedding had ended in flames, but the Hayes family had risen from those ashes stronger and brighter than any fire that tried to consume them, and that was the only happily ever after any of them needed. The phone continued ringing insistently until Emily finally answered it, her face draining of color as she listened. Daniel watched her grip tighten on the phone knuckles, white against the black plastic. I understand. Yes, we'll be there. She hung up, turning to face him with shock written across her features. That was my father's lawyer. He's had a heart attack. He's in critical condition at Denver General. The celebration atmosphere evaporated instantly. Despite everything that had happened between Emily and her parents, the news hit her like a physical blow. Daniel pulled her close as she trembled. We need to go, she whispered against his chest. Of course. Mrs. Patterson, can you stay with Lily? Within 20 minutes, they were on the road. Emily still in her wedding dress, Daniel in his suit, both of them processing the whiplash of going from joy to potential tragedy. The drive to Denver felt endless. Emily staring out the window while Daniel navigated the mountain roads. I haven't spoken to him since that day at the estate, Emily said quietly. The last real conversation we had, I told him I was done being a Carrington chess piece. What if those are the last words I ever say to him? They won't be, Daniel said firmly, though he knew better than anyone how quickly last words could become final ones. At the hospital, Patricia Carrington stood in the private waiting room looking smaller and more fragile than Daniel had ever seen her. Her perfect composure had cracked, revealing a frightened woman beneath the society facade. Emily Cholose Sami, she said, and then noticed their attire. You got married today. Mom, He would have wanted to know. Despite everything he would have wanted to know, Patricia's voice broke slightly. He's been struggling since you left. The stress of the investigation into Preston's death, the shame of almost losing you to that man, the guilt. He blamed himself for pushing you toward that marriage. Emily moved toward her mother tentatively, as if approaching a wounded animal. How bad is it? They're operating now, triple bypass. The doctors say... Patricia paused, composing herself. They say it's 50-50. Emily took her mother's hands, the first genuine physical contact Daniel had seen between them. He's strong. He'll make it through. He kept your room exactly as you left it, Patricia said suddenly. Wouldn't let me change anything. Said you might come home someday. Even after you made it clear you wouldn't, he kept hoping. The surgeon emerged 3 hours later, exhaustion evident in his posture but relief in his eyes. The surgery was successful. He's stable but critical. The next 24 hours will tell us everything. Patricia sagged with relief, and Emily caught her, supporting her to a chair. Daniel watched this reversal, Emily taking care of her mother instead of being managed by her, with a sense of something shifting, relationships realigning. Can we see him? Emily asked. One at a time, briefly. He's sedated, but sometimes patients can hear familiar voices. Patricia went first, returning with red eyes and trembling hands. Then Emily entered the ICU, Daniel waiting outside, watching through the glass as she took her father's hand and spoke words he couldn't hear. Whatever she said, tears rolled down her cheeks as she said it. When she came out, she walked straight into Daniel's arms. I told him I forgive him, that I love him, that I want him to meet his son-in-law properly. That's good. That's healing. He looked so small, Daniel. My father, who always seemed larger than life, looked fragile and human and old. They stayed at the hospital through the night, taking shifts with Patricia. Around 3 a.m, Daniel found his new mother-in-law standing at the window staring at the city lights. She chose well, Patricia said without turning. You're nothing like what we would have picked, but you're exactly what she needed. Mrs. Carrington. Patricia. We're family now, apparently. She turned to face him. I researched you, of course. After Emily disappeared to your cabin, former fire captain decorated for valor widowed tragically, you saved 13 people the night your wife died. 14? Daniel corrected quietly. I saved 14. Emily makes 14. No, Patricia said with surprising firmness. Emily saved herself. You just showed her she could. Charles Carrington woke the next afternoon, weak but lucid. His first word was Emily. And when she entered his room, something in his face transformed to softening. Daniel wouldn't have thought possible from the stern man he'd met weeks ago. My little girl, Charles said, voice hoarse. You came. Of course I came. You're my father. I'm a fool of a father. I almost got you killed for a business merger. Dad, no, let me say this, might not get another chance. He struggled to sit up straighter. I built an empire but forgot to build a family. Your mother and I, we treated you like an asset to be managed instead of a daughter to be loved. I'm sorry." Emily was crying openly now. "I know you loved me, you just didn't know how to show it. That's the Carrington curse. We're excellent at acquisitions, terrible at affection." His eyes found Daniel in the doorway. "You married him. Today. This morning. Without a prenuptial agreement. Dad?" "I'm joking. Mostly." Charles beckoned Daniel closer. "You saved my daughter's life." "She saved mine too," Daniel replied honestly. Charles studied him for a long moment. The flower delivery man who was really a hero. The newspapers loved that story. You know they're still writing about it. The Carrington heiress who chose love over money. "Is that what I did?" Emily asked, taking Daniel's hand. "No," Charles said. "You chose life over slow death. I know because I've been slowly dying for 30 years, and it took a heart attack to make me realize it." Over the next week, as Charles recovered, something unprecedented happened in the Carrington family. They talked. Really talked. Patricia revealed her own frustrated dreams abandoned for the role of perfect wife. Charles admitted to decades of depression hidden behind workaholism. Emily shared her plans for the future, which had nothing to do with real estate or high society. "What will you do?" Patricia asked one evening as they all sat in Charles's room, takeout containers spread across the hospital tray table. Another first, the Carringtons eating Chinese food from boxes. "I want to teach," Emily said, "like Sarah did. Kindergarten, maybe, or first grade. Young kids who still believe in magic." "You'll be wonderful at it," Daniel said, squeezing her hand. "The salary will be—" Patricia paused, choosing words carefully. "Modest." "I know, but Daniel and I have talked about it. We don't need much. The cabin, each other, Lily. Maybe more kids someday." "More grandchildren," Charles said thoughtfully. "I was a terrible father, but perhaps I could be a better grandfather." "You'll have to learn to play," Emily warned. "Tea parties dress up probably glitter. Lots of glitter." "I can learn." Lily visited on day 5, having campaigned relentlessly to meet Emily's parents. She entered Charles's room with the confidence of someone who belonged everywhere, carrying a hand-drawn card. "Are you Emily's daddy?" she asked Charles directly. "I am." "Then you're my grandpa now. Here." She handed him the card, a crayon drawing of stick figures holding hands labeled "Our Big Family" in her careful printing. Charles stared at the card for a long moment, then at this little girl who had claimed him without hesitation. "Thank you, Lily. This is the best gift anyone's given me in years." "You're welcome. Do you want to see my loose tooth?" And so Charles Carrington, who had negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, found himself solemnly inspecting a 7-year-old's loose tooth and discussing the current tooth fairy rates with complete seriousness. After Charles was released, still weak but improving, an unexpected problem arose. The investigation into Preston's death and the Russian mob connections had frozen many of the Carrington assets. The empire Charles had built was crumbling, investigators finding irregularities that suggested not all the family money was as clean as it appeared. "We might lose everything," Charles told Emily one evening as they sat on the cabin's porch. He and Patricia had taken to visiting regularly, their mansion feeling too large and empty. "The houses, the investments, most of the fortune." "How do you feel about that?" Emily asked. "Terrified, but," he admitted. "And free. Is that insane?" "No," Daniel said from his seat beside Emily. "That's clarity. Sometimes losing everything shows you what's really important." Patricia emerged from the cabin where she'd been helping Lily with homework, another transformation that continued to amaze everyone. "The rice is burning," she announced. "You're cooking?" Emily asked, stunned. "Attempting to cook. Lily's teaching me. Apparently I'm a disaster in the kitchen, but trying very hard, which she assures me is the first step to getting better." The rice was indeed burnt, but they ate it anyway, laughing at the crispy bits, Charles telling stories about his own father that he'd never shared before. This was what family dinners were supposed to be. Emily realized imperfect, warm, real. A month after the wedding, another crisis emerged. The man who'd set the chapel fire, Preston's hired arsonist, had made a deal with prosecutors. In exchange for testimony, he'd revealed something shocking. Preston had a partner, someone who'd helped plan everything, someone who stood to gain if both Preston and Emily died. Who? Emily asked Jim Rodriguez when he came to deliver the news in person. Mitchell Blackwood, Preston's younger brother. Emily went pale. She'd met Mitchell numerous times at family dinners, charity events. He'd always been charming, sympathetic about Preston's controlling nature, offering her kind words and support. He played me. He played everyone, Jim said. Apparently he's the one who introduced Preston to the Russians, knowing his brother would get in too deep. If Preston died and took you with him, Mitchell would inherit everything, the company, the insurance payouts, all of it. Where is he now? Daniel asked, already in protection mode. That's the problem. He disappeared 2 days ago. Border cameras caught him heading to Canada, but after that, nothing. Emily stood and walked to the window, looking out at the peaceful forest. So he's out there, free, knowing he tried to have me killed. We'll find him, Jim assured her. No, Emily said, turning back. I'm done being hunted, done looking over my shoulder. If Mitchell wants to hide in the shadows for the rest of his life, let him. I have better things to do with mine. But Mitchell Blackwood wasn't done with them. 3 nights later, Daniel woke to the smoke alarm screaming. Not a malfunction, real smoke creeping under their bedroom door. He shook Emily awake, his training taking over instantly. Fire. We need to move. Now. They rushed to Lily's room, Daniel scooping her up while Emily grabbed Mrs. Whiskers, who was yowling in protest. The hallway was already thick with smoke, orange light flickering from the direction of the living room. The window, Daniel said, already moving. He'd installed an emergency ladder after Sarah's death, paranoid about fire safety. Now that paranoia paid off. Emily went first, then Daniel handed down Lily, who was crying but following instructions. He passed the cat to Emily, then descended himself, feeling the heat intensify behind him. They ran to a safe distance, Daniel already on the phone with 911 when a figure emerged from the tree line. Mitchell Blackwood holding a gun, his face twisted with rage. You ruined everything, he snarled at Emily. The perfect plan, years in the making, and you had to survive. Daniel stepped in front of his family. It's over, Mitchell. The police know everything. Then I have nothing left to lose. Mitchell raised the gun. The shot came from behind them. Mitchell crumpled, clutching his shoulder. Marcus Webb stepped out from the Shadow's weapon trained on the fallen man. Saw the fire from the road, Marcus said calmly. Thought you might need backup. The police arrived with the fire trucks, Mitchell arrested and taken away, the cabin saved though damaged. As they stood watching firefighters work, Lily tugged on Emily's hand. Are we homeless now? No, baby, Emily said, kneeling to Lily's level. Home isn't just a building, it's the people you love. Then we're definitely not homeless. We have lots of people. Charles and Patricia arrived within an hour, having been called by the police. They took one look at their soot-covered daughter and granddaughter and made an immediate decision. You're coming home with us, Patricia said, in a tone that brooked no argument. All of you, until the cabin is repaired. Mom, we couldn't. Emily Carrington Hayes, you are my daughter, and you will not be sleeping in a hotel when we have 14 empty bedrooms. So they found themselves back at the Carrington estate, but it felt different now. Patricia teaching Lily to play piano badly. Charles and Daniel discussing reconstruction plans over coffee. Emily discovering her childhood room had indeed been preserved down to the teenage poetry hidden in her desk drawer. This is embarrassing, she told Daniel as he read one particularly angst-filled piece about feeling trapped. This is you, he corrected. All the pieces that made you who you are. The cabin took 3 months to repair and expand. Daniel insisted on improvements. A proper security system, better fire suppression, a second story with room for the larger family they hoped to build. Charles insisted on paying, calling it a belated wedding present, and for once, Daniel didn't argue. During those 3 months, living at the estate boundaries dissolved and rebuilt in healthier patterns. Patricia learned to make pancakes in the shape of animals. Charles discovered he enjoyed reading bedtime stories, doing voices that made Lily giggle. Emily started taking education courses online, preparing for her new career. Daniel ran his flower business from the Carrington greenhouse, teaching Patricia about orchids and finding her surprisingly passionate about gardening. I always wanted to grow things, she confessed one afternoon, dirt under her manicured nails. But it wasn't appropriate for a Carrington wife. A lot of things weren't appropriate that should have been, Daniel said gently. Yes, like happiness. That was never particularly appropriate either. The day they moved back into the rebuilt cabin, the whole family came to help. Charles, who hadn't lifted anything heavier than a portfolio in decades, carried boxes. Patricia organized the kitchen with military precision. Marcus dropped by with a housewarming gift, a state-of-the-art security system he'd installed personally. No more surprise visitors, he said meaningfully. That night, as they tucked Lily into bed in her new room painted purple, at her insistence, she looked up at them with serious eyes. Is the story over now? The bad men are gone? We have our house back. Everyone's together. Stories don't really end, baby, Daniel said. They just become new stories. What's our new story about? Emily smiled. Whatever we want it to be. That's the beautiful thing about writing your own story. You get to choose what comes next. Can it have a baby brother or sister? Daniel and Emily exchanged glances, and Emily's hand went to her stomach in an unconscious gesture she'd been making for a week. Actually, Emily said, that chapter might already be starting. Daniel's eyes widened. Really? Really, I was going to tell you tonight after Lily was asleep, but... We're having a baby, Lily shrieked, bouncing on her bed. When... What's its name? Can I teach it about rocks? Slow down, sweetheart. Daniel laughed, but his eyes were bright with tears. We have time to figure all that out. Later, after Lily finally fell asleep and they stood on their rebuilt porch looking at the stars, Emily leaned into Daniel's embrace. Are you happy? She asked. Happy doesn't begin to cover it, he replied. A year ago, I was just existing, going through motions, delivering flowers, raising Lily, but not really living. Then you crashed into my life in a burning wedding dress. The best crash of my life, Emily said. Though I could have done without the actual fire part. The fire brought us together. No, Emily corrected. The fire was just the catalyst. We brought us together. Every choice after that moment, me coming here, you offering shelter, us choosing to fight for this, that was all us. The phone rang inside and Daniel groaned. If that's another crisis. But it was Patricia calling to remind them about Sunday dinner and to ask if Lily liked chocolate or vanilla cake better. Both. Daniel could hear Lily call out, apparently not as asleep as they'd thought. Chocolate and vanilla. Grandma. Then both it shall be, Patricia replied, and Daniel could hear the smile in her voice. 6 months later, Emily gave birth to a son they named Samuel Charles Hayes, honoring both the past and the present. Charles cried when they told him the name Patricia, pretending she wasn't crying too. Lily appointed herself the baby's official protector and rock educator, convinced he needed to start his collection early. Emily got her teaching degree and a job at Mountain View Elementary, the same school where Sarah had taught. It felt like coming full circle, honoring the past while building the future. Her first day, she found a note in her desk from a former colleague of Sarah's. She would be so proud of how you're loving them. Daniel expanded his flower business, hired help, and started doing workshops on fire safety at local schools. He never forgot his captain's training, but now he used it to prevent fires rather than fight them. The Carrington fortune much diminished after investigations and settlements stabilized at a level that Charles declared comfortably modest. He and Patricia sold the estate, moving to a smaller house in Denver, where Patricia started a garden that became the neighborhood's wonder. I never knew dirt could be so satisfying, she told Emily one afternoon, showing off her tomatoes. You've changed, Emily observed. We all have. Thank God. Mitchell Blackwood was convicted and sentenced to 25 years. Preston's death was officially ruled a murder, the Russians cleaning up their loose end. The chapel was rebuilt by the community, and a year after the fire, another wedding took place there. Marcus Webb married a nurse he'd met at the hospital while visiting Daniel. He asked Daniel to be his best man, Lily to be flower girl again. I promise not to throw petals at people's faces this time, Lily said solemnly, then whispered to Emily, but if the ceremony gets boring, all bets are off. At the reception, Charles approached Daniel at the bar. I owe you an apology. For what? That first day at the estate. I tried to pay you off, treated you like the help. I didn't see what Emily saw, a man who'd run into fire for a stranger who'd protect her with his life. You were protecting your daughter in your own way. No, I was protecting the Carrington name, the fortune, the reputation. I'd forgotten that Emily was more important than all of that. Charles paused. I'm glad she found you. Glad you found each other. So am I. Though your toast is still terrible. Patricia mentioned it at dinner last week. Daniel laughed. Emily's been trying to teach me. I'm a hopeless case. Some things can't be taught, but love that you've mastered. They clinked glasses, watching Emily dance with Lily and baby Sam in her arms, all three laughing at something only they could hear. The fairy lights strung around the rebuilt chapel made everything glow, but Emily glowed brightest of all, not with designer gowns or family jewels, but with pure joy. Look at them, Charles said softly. That's wealth, real wealth. Daniel nodded. A year and a half ago, he'd delivered flowers to a society wedding, expecting nothing more than a paycheck. Instead, he'd found everything love, family, purpose, a second chance at life. The music changed to something slow, and Emily handed Sam to Patricia, then held out her hand to Daniel. Dance with me? Always. As they swayed together, Emily whispered, no regrets. Only one. What? I should have let the first dress burn completely, would have saved us from your mother trying to have it restored. Emily laughed, the sound bright as flame, but warm as home. I love you, Daniel Hayes. I love you too, Emily Carrington Hayes. You know, she said thoughtfully, we never did get our ice cream, from that first day when Lily was promised ice cream if you came back safe. You're right. How about tomorrow? All of us. All of us. Emily agreed, and the words encompassed so much. Daniel, Lily, Sam Charles, and Patricia Marcus, Mrs. Patterson, even cranky Mrs. Whiskers, the family they'd built from ashes stronger for having been tested by fire. The song ended, but they kept dancing, neither willing to let go. Around them, the rebuilt chapel stood as testament to resilience, but Daniel and Emily were testament to something more. The power of choosing love over fear, family over fortune, authenticity over expectation. They'd both been trapped in different ways, him by grief, her by obligation. It had taken a fire to free them, but what they'd built from that freedom was entirely their own creation. Not a fairy tale with a predetermined ending, but a real story that continued to unfold with each passing day, each small choice to love, protect, and trust. Tomorrow, there would be ice cream and laughter and probably burnt toast. There would be teaching days and flower deliveries, grandparent visits, and bedtime stories. There would be ordinary moments that were actually miracles. The miracle of second chances, of found family, of love that didn't require perfection. But tonight they danced in a rebuilt chapel while their children played and their parents took photos and their friend got married to his own second chance. Tonight, they were exactly where they belonged, not because fate or tradition or obligation placed them there, but because they'd chosen it, fought for it, earned it. The fire had almost killed Emily, but it had also given her life. Real life, messy and dangerous and beautiful. And as she rested her head on Daniel's shoulder, feeling his heartbeat steady against hers, she knew with absolute certainty that she'd run through 1,000 fires to reach this moment, this man, this family, this home. Hey, Daniel said softly, what are you thinking? That sometimes the best things rise from ashes, like phoenixes. Like us, Emily corrected. Like us. The seasons turned, and with them life settled into rhythms that felt both new and eternal. Emily had been teaching for 2 years now, and on this particular October morning, she stood before her first grade class with paint-stained fingers and a smile that reached her eyes. Mrs. Hayes' Tommy put paint in his hair, a little girl named Madison announced with the righteous indignation only 6-year-olds could muster. It's art! Tommy protested, his blonde hair now streaked with purple. Emily knelt between them, remembering how Patricia would have handled this with horror and immediate calls for professional cleaning. Instead, she grabbed a paper towel and helped Tommy create intentional purple spikes. There. Now you're a purple dinosaur, much more artistic. The classroom dissolved into giggles and requests for their own colored hair. Emily caught herself in the mirror across the room. Paint on her cheek, her designer past invisible beneath washable marker stains and construction paper cuts. She'd never been happier. The phone on her desk rang during quiet reading time. The principal's voice was carefully neutral. "Emily, could you come to the office? There's someone here to see you." Her blood chilled. Even after 3 years, unexpected visitors triggered old fears. But when she entered the principal's office, the visitor wasn't a threat from the past, but a ghost of a different sort. "Hello, Emily." Rebecca Blackwood Preston's mother sat in the visitor's chair, looking aged beyond her 60 years. Emily had met her only twice during her engagement to Preston, a cold, calculating woman who'd seemed carved from marble and ambition. Now she looked hollowed-out grief having eaten away at her from the inside. "Mrs. Blackwood, please, I know I have no right to be here, but I needed to see you." Emily sat carefully, her teacher's instincts for dealing with distressed people taking over. "What can I do for you?" "Forgive me." The words came out broken. "I raised monsters, both my boys. I taught them that winning mattered more than anything, that people were just pieces on a board. I created the men who tried to kill you." "You didn't light the fire." "Didn't I?" Every time I told Preston that Blackwoods don't lose, that failure wasn't an option, that he had to secure the right marriage to the right family, I lit matches. Every time I favored Mitchell's cunning over compassion, praised his manipulations as clever strategy, I spread accelerant. Rebecca's hands shook as she pulled out an envelope. "I know money can't undo anything but Preston's legitimate life insurance, the parts not connected to the crimes. I want you to have it." Emily looked at the check inside $2 million. Enough to change everything, to never worry about mortgage payments or college funds or whether they could afford another baby. "I can't take this." "You must. Please. Let me do this one right thing." Rebecca's composure finally cracked completely. "I lost both my sons, one to death, one to prison. I have no one left, nothing but money that reminds me of all my failures. At least let it do some good." Emily thought about Daniel, about how they'd scraped together savings for the cabin repairs, how he'd worked extra hours to afford Sam's medical bills when he'd been born premature. She thought about Lily's college fund, still so small, and the third child they'd been discussing but worrying about affording. "There's a condition," Emily said finally. "You use half of this to set up a foundation for burn victims, people who've lost everything to fires. Name it after Sarah Hayes." Rebecca's eyes widened. "Your husband's first wife. She died trying to save others. Unlike Preston, who died trying to save himself." Emily pushed half the check back across the desk. "Honor someone worth honoring." Rebecca nodded slowly, understanding passing between them. Two women who'd been shaped by the Blackwood legacy in different ways, both trying to build something better from the ruins. That evening, Emily showed Daniel the check as they prepared dinner together, Sam in his high chair, throwing Cheerios with remarkable accuracy, while Lily did homework at the kitchen table. "We can't keep this," Daniel said immediately. "That's what I said. But Daniel, think about it. Sam's therapy for his premature birth delays Lily's college, maybe another baby." "Emily, this is blood money." "No, blood money would be from Preston or Mitchell. This is from a broken mother trying to make amends. And we're using half to create something good, a foundation in Sarah's name." Daniel stared at the check, then at his family. Lily was explaining to Sam why math was important, using her crackers to demonstrate addition. Sam responded by smearing banana on his tray in what might have been numbers or might have been abstract art. "Sarah would have taken it," he said finally. "She was practical that way. Always said pride was expensive and we couldn't afford it. So we take it, but we don't change. We don't become different people because we have money." "Agreed, though I might buy a toaster that actually works." "Our toaster works fine." "Daddy, our toaster is evil," Lily interjected without looking up from her homework. "It burns everything except when you want toast, and then it doesn't cook at all." Even Daniel had to laugh at that assessment. 2 weeks later, Patricia called with news that changed everything again. "Charles is sick," she said without preamble. "Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The words hit Emily like physical blows. After everything they'd rebuilt, after finally becoming the father she'd always needed, he was being taken away. "How long?" 6 months. Maybe less." Emily found herself sliding down, the kitchen wall phone still pressed to her ear. Daniel appeared immediately, Sam on his hip, his face shifting from casual to concerned in an instant. "We're coming," Emily managed. "Mom, we're coming." The next months became a blur of hospital visits, treatment attempts, and precious moments grabbed between the inevitable progression of disease. Charles surprisingly faced his diagnosis with more grace than he'd faced most of his life. "I'm not afraid," he told Emily one afternoon as she sat beside his hospital bed, grading papers while he dozed. "For the first time in my life, I'm not afraid. I've seen my daughter happy, met my grandchildren learn to play. What else is there time, Emily said through tears. "There should be more time. Quality over quantity, my dear." "You taught me that." Lily became Charles's constant companion, bringing him drawings and rocks from her collection. She'd climb carefully onto his hospital bed and tell him elaborate stories about her day, never seeming to notice how thin he'd become, how his voice had weakened. "Grandpa, when you go to heaven, will you tell Daddy's first mommy that he's taking good care of us?" Charles looked at Daniel, who'd gone very still in the doorway. "I promise I will, sweetheart." "Good. She probably worries. Mommies always worry, even angel ones." One evening, as November rain pelted the hospital windows, Charles asked to speak to Daniel alone. "I need you to promise me something. Anything. Take care of Patricia. She's going to fall apart when I'm gone. For all her strength, I've been her anchor for 35 years. She doesn't know how to be alone." "She won't be alone. She has us. She'll fight it, push you away. It's what Carringtons do when we're hurting. We isolate, build walls. Don't let her." "I won't." Charles gripped Daniel's hand with surprising strength. "You saved Emily. In every way a person can be saved. I'll go to my grave grateful that she found you." "She saved me too." "I know. That's why it works." 2 days before Thanksgiving, Charles Carrington died. He went quietly in his sleep, Patricia holding one hand, Emily the other, while Daniel kept Lily and Sam in the hallway, telling them stories about brave grandpas and how love never really dies. The funeral was massive. Hundreds of business associates, society figures, people Charles had barely known, but who felt obligated to attend. But the real goodbye happened later, just family at the cabin sharing memories over Patricia's improving cooking and Lily's demand that everyone say one favorite thing about Grandpa. "He read voices funny," Lily said. "His dragon sounded like a businessman and his princess sounded like a dragon." "He taught me that changing isn't weakness," Patricia said quietly. "It's the bravest thing a person can do." "He showed me that fathers can learn to love better," Emily added, holding Sam close. "That it's never too late to become who you should have been." Daniel raised his glass of juice. Lily insisted on juice, not wine, because Grandpa had loved their Sunday morning orange juice traditions. He proved that family isn't about blood or names or inheritance. It's about choosing to show up even when it's hard. Patricia stayed with them for a month after the funeral, unable to face the empty Denver house. She spent her days teaching Lily piano, helping Emily with lesson plans, learning Daniel's flower business with surprising aptitude. "I could sell the Denver house," she said one evening so quietly they almost missed it. "Buy something smaller, closer to you all." "Mom, you don't have to." "I want to." Charles was right. I spent so many years being a Carrington wife that I forgot how to be Patricia. Maybe it's time to remember. Or discover. I'm not sure which. They found her a cottage 20 minutes away, close enough for daily visits, but far enough to maintain independence. She threw herself into gardening with the passion of someone discovering their calling late in life. Within 6 months, her greenhouse rivaled Daniel's. "I'm entering the county fair," she announced one Sunday dinner, producing a tomato that belonged in a record book. "Grandma's getting competitive about vegetables," Lily Stage whispered to Sam. "This is awesome." Spring arrived with unexpected news. Emily was pregnant again, this time planned and prepared for. But at the first ultrasound, the technician's face went carefully neutral in a way that made Emily's heart race. "Is something wrong?" "Not wrong, just unexpected. Congratulations, you're having twins." But Daniel actually sat down on the floor of the exam room. Twins. 2 heartbeats, 2 babies. Fraternal, from what I can see. Emily started laughing, then crying, then laughing again. We wanted a bigger family. This is efficiently bigger, Daniel managed, still looking stunned. Lily's reaction was pure 7-year-old enthusiasm. 2 babies at the same time. This is the best thing ever. Can we name them something that matches, like thunder and lightning or peanut butter and jelly? We're not naming your siblings after sandwiches, Emily said firmly, but peanut butter haze sounds amazing. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Emily had to take leave from teaching earlier than planned. She spent her days preparing the nursery they'd need to add another room to the cabin and helping Patricia with her greenhouse. I never got to do this with you, Patricia said one afternoon, folding tiny onesies with reverence. I had nannies handle everything. I missed so much. You're here now. Second chances, Patricia murmured. Charles always said I was too proud to admit when I was wrong. But I was wrong about so much, Emily. About what mattered, what love looked like, what family meant. We all were. That's why we're all here building something different. Marcus visited regularly, his security company thriving, but his personal life still sparse. He dated the nurse briefly, but it hadn't worked out. I'm married to the job, he told Daniel over beers one evening. I used to say the same thing. Then Emily needed rescuing. Not everyone gets a burning chapel moment, Danny. No, but everyone gets moments. You just have to recognize them. As if the universe enjoyed irony. Marcus's moment walked into the cabin the next week in the form of Jessica Rodriguez Jim's daughter, fresh from her FBI Academy graduation, assigned to follow up on the lingering threads of the Blackwood case. She was nothing like the nurse Sharp where the other had been soft direct, where the other had been gentle. She looked at Marcus's security setup and immediately found 3 flaws, which she pointed out with a grin that transformed her serious face. You going to fix those, or should I worry about Emily's safety? She challenged. Marcus actually stammered. Daniel had never seen Marcus Webb stammered. I'll upgrade everything tomorrow. Good, I'll help. I have some ideas about the perimeter sensors. Watching them work together, arguing about security protocols with the passion most people reserve for sports teams, Emily nudged Daniel. Another burning chapel moment. Different kind of fire, but yeah. The twins arrived on a summer morning 3 weeks early but healthy. Margaret Sarah Hayes and Thomas Charles Hayes entered the world screaming, which Lily took as a sign of their strength. They're loud, she announced approvingly. They'll fit right in. Patricia holding Margaret while Emily nursed Thomas wept openly. They're perfect. Absolutely perfect. They're going to be exhausting, Daniel corrected, but his eyes were soft as he watched his expanded family. Worth it, though, Emily said, then winced. Okay, Thomas is definitely going to be the troublemaker. His latch is terrible. He's determined. Patricia defended her newest grandson. That's a valuable trait. Not at 3 a.m., it's not. Life with 5-year-old Sam, 9-year-old Lily, and newborn twins was chaos of the best kind. The cabin even expanded, felt full to bursting. Toys multiplied, overnight laundry became a Sisyphean task, and sleep became a distant memory. But Sunday dinners continued now, with high chairs and baby monitors. Patricia arrived early to help cook. Jessica and Marcus dropped by regularly. Their relationship had progressed to the point where Lily called them Aunt Jess and Uncle Marcus. Mrs. Patterson, now in her 80s, still visited weekly, teaching Lily to knit increasingly complex patterns. This is what I always dreamed of, Patricia said one evening, surveying the controlled chaos of dinner. Sam was explaining something about dinosaurs with great enthusiasm. Lily was trying to teach the twins peekaboo, despite their being too young to understand, and Daniel was attempting to serve food while Emily nursed Margaret. Really? Emily asked, surprised. You dreamed of chaos and noise and never-ending laundry. I dreamed of life. Real messy, beautiful life. The kind that can't be controlled or managed or strategically planned. Patricia picked up Thomas, who'd started fussing. I just didn't know how to create it. I thought if I controlled everything perfectly, happiness would follow. Instead, I controlled myself right out of any real joy. Until now. Until Charles had his heart attack and everything fell apart. Best disaster that ever happened to us. Daniel finally sat down with his own plate, looking exhausted but content. Though next time maybe we could skip the near-death experiences and just go straight to the Enlightenment. Where's the fun in that? Emily teased. Daddy doesn't like fun, Lily announced. He likes schedules and vegetables and safety protocols. I like fun. I'm fun. You made us practice evacuation drills for fun last weekend, Sam pointed out. Fire safety is not fun, boss, the entire table chorused. Later that night, after the twins were finally asleep and the older kids were in bed, Daniel and Emily sat on their porch swing, a baby monitor between them. Do you ever think about it? Emily asked. What would have happened if the chapel hadn't burned? You would have married Preston. He probably would have found another way to try to kill you. Or you would have lived a long, miserable life in a cage of expectations. And you? I would have kept delivering flowers, kept going through the motions. Lily would have grown up with a father who was only half present. He pulled Emily closer. That fire was the worst and best thing that ever happened to both of us. No, Emily corrected. The fire was just the catalyst. The best thing was what we chose to do after. We could have gone back to our separate lives, stayed in our separate cages. But we chose each other. We chose this. A cry came through the monitor, Margaret always the more demanding twin. Emily started to get up, but Daniel stopped her. I've got her. You got Thomas an hour ago. As he stood, Emily caught his hand. Daniel, I love our life, our chaotic, exhausting, beautiful life. Even with my terrible toast. Especially with your terrible toast. It keeps us humble. He kissed her forehead, then went inside to tend to their daughter. Emily stayed on the swing, listening to the night sounds of their mountain home. Somewhere in Denver, Patricia was probably reading one of her gardening books, planning next season's greenhouse expansion. Marcus and Jessica were likely arguing about security protocols over takeout. Mrs. Patterson was knitting something elaborate for the twins. All these lives interconnected, saved and saving each other in ways large and small. It had started with a fire, with Daniel pulling her from burning wreckage. But that rescue had just been the beginning. The real saving had happened slowly, choice by choice, day by day, as they built something worth saving from the ashes of their old lives. Through the window, she could hear Daniel singing softly to Margaret some made-up song about brave princesses and flower-delivering dragons. His voice was terrible off-key and uncertain, but Margaret didn't care. She was already settling, soothed by the sound of safety, of love of home. Emily closed her eyes, feeling the weight of their journey from that burning chapel to this moment. They'd faced literal and figurative fires, threats and losses, yet somehow emerged not just intact but transformed. The Carrington heiress who'd walked down that aisle in a 20-pound dress no longer existed. In her place sat Emily Hayes' teacher, mother-wife, wearing pajama pants with spit up on the shoulder, happier than that other Emily could have ever imagined possible. A second cry joined Margaret's, Thomas not wanting to be left out. Emily laughed softly. Here we go again. She stood to go inside, then paused, looking back at the swing where so many important conversations had happened, where she'd first told Daniel she loved him, where they'd decided to try for the twins, where Charles had sat just weeks before his death, holding Sam and telling him stories about dragons who learned to be grandfathers. The swing would be there tomorrow and the day after, and all the days that followed. There would be more conversations, more decisions, more moments that mattered. But for now, her babies needed her, and that was enough. That was everything. Inside, she found Daniel in the nursery, a twin in each arm, looking overwhelmed but determined. Lily stood in the doorway in her pajamas, Sam beside her, rubbing his eyes. Family meeting in the twin room of some, Lily declared. Everyone helps. And so they did. All 5 of them crowded into the nursery at midnight, taking turns rocking babies and telling silly stories to keep everyone calm. Patricia would have been horrified at the lack of structure, the chaos of it all. The old Emily would have been too. But this Emily, surrounded by her beautifully imperfect family in their expanded but still too small cabin, knew this was what wealth really looked like. Not investment portfolios or strategic marriages, but midnight cuddles and terrible lullabies, and the absolute certainty that whatever tomorrow brought, fires or sunshine, chaos or calm, they would face it together. I love you all, she said to the room at large. Love you too, came the chorus of replies, even Sam managing a sleepy "love you" before dropping back to sleep against Daniel's shoulder. Tomorrow, there would be teaching and flower deliveries, grocery runs, and pediatrician appointments. There would be Patricia's greenhouse tour and Jessica teaching Lily basic self-defense, despite Daniel's protests about age appropriateness. There would be burnt toast and perfect coffee tears and laughter, exhaustion, and exhilaration. But tonight, in this moment, they were simply together. A family forged in fire but built on choice, held together not by obligation or tradition, but by the conscious decision to keep choosing each other every single day. The twins finally settled, and one by one they made their way back to bed. Daniel and Emily were the last to leave, standing in the doorway, watching their babies sleep. "No regrets?" Daniel asked their old question. "Not one," Emily replied. "You?" "Well, I do think Peanut Butter would have been a great name." She hit him with a burp cloth, and he caught her hand, pulling her close. They stood there, exhausted parents of 4, successful in ways that had nothing to do with money or status, everything to do with the life they'd built from ashes. "We should sleep while we can," Emily murmured against his chest. "We should." Neither moved. 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. And in those 5 minutes, in the quiet of their home with their children safe and their future uncertain, but theirs to shape, Emily thought about the woman she'd been in that burning chapel. Trapped, terrified, certain she was about to die in a dress that represented everything she'd never wanted. That woman had been saved by a stranger who became everything. But more than that, she'd saved herself choice by choice, day by day, building a life that was the opposite of everything she'd been raised to want, and exactly everything she needed. The fire had been the beginning, but this quiet moment in a cabin full of love and chaos and possibility, this was the real triumph. Not just survival, but transformation. Not just rescue, but redemption. "Okay," she finally said. "Now we really need to sleep." "Agreed. Margaret will be up in 2 hours. Thomas in 3. Lily by 6. Sam will sleep until noon if we let him." They knew their children's rhythms like their own heartbeats. These little people they'd brought into the world through birth and choice, through tragedy and triumph. As they settled into bed, Daniel's arm around her, Emily felt the last piece of her old self, the part that still sometimes wondered, what if, finally let go. There were no what ifs anymore. There was only what was a life built on purpose, a family created through courage, a future bright with possibility, even if clouded with uncertainty. The chapel fire had almost killed Emily Carrington. But from those ashes, Emily Hayes had risen not like a phoenix mythical and alone, but like a wildflower growing strong in unexpected soil, surrounded by an entire garden of other survivors, all reaching toward the sun together. And that, she thought, as sleep finally claimed her, was the real miracle. Not the rescue from the fire, but everything that came after. Everything they'd chosen to build from the ashes. Everything they'd continue to build one day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of ordinary magic at a time. Forever and always together.